Chapter 30-43. The war between dragons and phoenixes lasted for many years. At the beginning of the war, it was only a small-scale conflict with both sides winning and losing. However, it didn't take long for the war to escalate, expand and spread. It involved hundreds of realms and even other super big realms. At first, the war was in a stalemate. As time passed, the number of experts from the various races who stood on the side of the dragon world decreased, causing the situation to gradually change. The dragons gradually showed signs of defeat. Some of the large and small worlds that they had conquered also broke away from the control of the dragon world. They either chose to join the Wutong world or leave. As a super world like the Blood world joined the battlefield, the Tomb world, Poison world, Bone world, and other powerful worlds that had risen in recent years also stood on the side of the Wutong world. The dragons were defeated one after another. Both sides even had a war between emperors and suffered heavy losses. However, because the number of dragons was small and they did not have any helpers, the impact of this loss on the dragons was even greater. The dragon world had the Horn Dragon Domain, Azure Dragon Domain, Chi Dragon Domain, Torch Dragon Domain, and Ing Dragon Domain. The 5 dragon domains were connected and formed a powerful coiling dragon formation. Now, all the dragons had retreated to the dragon world and relied on this formation to defend. Su Zimo and Monkey rushed over and heard a lot of news about the war between dragons and phoenixes. Both of them heard many rumors about the cause of this war. On this day, according to the guidance of the Starry Sky map, Su Zimo and Monkey had already arrived near the dragon world and left the spatial tunnel. The moment they arrived in the Starry Sky, a strong smell of blood assaulted them, suffocating them. The two of them looked over and could not help but feel their hearts skip a beat. As far as the eye could see, there was nothing but a glaring blood red. There was blood everywhere and the original color of the Starry Sky could no longer be seen. Back then, when Su Zimo and the people of the Sword World were on their way to the Celestial Tribute World for the first time, they had encountered the destruction of the 7-star Sword World. Billions of living beings died tragically and their blood condensed, forming an extremely shocking blood river in the Starry Sky. But now, the vast Starry Sky had been dyed into a boundless sea of blood. How many people have died? Monkey grinned and took a deep breath. After all, Su Zimo had traveled through the 3,000 worlds before. The knowledge of his 2 true bodies far surpassed others. But after the monkey ascended, he had always stayed in the Blood Ape world, so he had never seen such a scene. The two of them traveled for nearly half a day. The Starry Sky beneath their feet was dyed red. It was easy to imagine how intense the battle back then had been. This was the war between super great worlds. It was cruel and bloody. The lives of tens of thousands of living beings were as worthless as grass under the engulfment of war. In order to form such a boundless sea of blood, the number of living beings that had died was uncountable. The battle between the two sides is indeed very meticulous. As Monkey walked, he mumbled, "To think that there aren't any corpses on the battlefield despite fighting to this extent. Even severed limbs are rarely seen." Su Zimo frowned. Generally speaking, after a great battle, there would be people cleaning up the battlefield and collecting the treasures left behind. However, it was indeed rare for a battlefield to be cleared to such an extent. Where is the dragon realm? Why can't I see any traces of it? After searching for half a day, Monkey gradually grew impatient. It's right ahead. Su Zimo looked into the distance with a shimmering gaze. The surrounding blood flowed to the front as though it was blocked by something and could not continue spreading. If Su Zimo's guess was right, the dragon realm was right ahead. Due to the coiling dragon formation that enveloped the entire territory of the dragon realm, the sea of blood beneath their feet could not flow over. Right now, the battle between the dragons and phoenixes had yet to end. Although the two of them did not have any enmity, it was not appropriate for them to barge in rashly. Is anyone there? Monkey stood outside the dragon world and shouted, "We brothers have come to the dragon world to visit an old friend." During this period of time, there would definitely be dragons patrolling the dragon realm. Not long after the two of them arrived, they attracted the attention of a few dragons. All of a sudden, a series of ripples appeared in the void ahead like a water curtain. "What are you shouting for?" Close in, the water curtain parted and 2 dragons walked out. Wearing battle armor and wielding long spears, they glared at Monkey with unfriendly expressions and hollered. "What are you saying?" Monkey raised his brow with a ferocious gaze. But soon he recalled the purpose of their visit and endured it. He merely smacked his lips and ignored the 2 dragons. Of the 2 dragons before him, one was at True Self realm while the other was at Divine Essence realm. Given Monkey's current combat strength, the 2 dragons were truly not worthy of his attention. Humph! The true dragon looked at Su Zimo and Monkey. Even though he sensed Su Zimo's grotto heaven realm cultivation, there was no fear on his face. He sized them up with disdain and curled his lips. We dragons won't befriend weak foreign races like you. Who knows what you two foreign races are up to by sneaking into the dragon realm? That's right. The divine essence realm dragon sneered as well. Dragons don't have an old friend like you. How can a wild monkey and a human be worthy of befriending dragons? Su Zimo frowned as he listened. When did dragons become like this? Monkey had long disliked the two of them. At this moment he could no longer hold it in and cursed, "Dragons are only asses. Looking at your faces, I know that the rumors are true. Serves you right for your defeat." What did you say? This sentence immediately poked the dragon clan's sore spot, and the two dragon clans' expressions changed. Where did this wild monkey come from to behave atrociously in our dragon realm? Instantly, the true dragon's killing intent surged as he said coldly, "The two of you are behaving suspiciously. I think you must be spies sent by the Wudong world." Before he finished his sentence, the true dragon had already attacked. Even with a grotto heaven king like Su Zimo beside him, the true dragon had no qualms. Bang! The moment the true dragon charged forward, he was sent flying by Monkey's punch. Spitting out blood, his hair was disheveled and he was in an extremely wretched state. After fusing 4 bloodlines, Monkey could suppress ordinary dragons in melee combat. With a shocked expression, the true dragon turned and retreated into the dragon realm without hesitation. The reason why he was fearless was because of the coiling dragon formation behind him. If he sensed that something was amiss, he could enter the formation by taking a step back. If an outsider were to barge into the dragon realm, they would definitely trigger the coiling dragon formation. Even a peak king would not be able to defend against the killing power of the coiling dragon formation, let alone an ordinary human. However, the moment the true dragon turned around, he caught sight of a person standing before him. It was that human. He was only a single step away from the dragon realm. But it was this one step's distance that he couldn't go back. The human did not attack and had a calm expression without any hostility. However, he felt an unstoppable pressure. He could not move at all in front of this human. The heavenly essence dragon was rooted to the spot with a panicked expression as well. "Don't be afraid, I won't kill you," Su Zimo said slowly with a gentle tone. For some reason, the two dragons felt an uncontrollable fear in their hearts when they heard that. In front of this human, even their bloodlines that they were proud of seemed to be suppressed. How was that possible? Right then, the human said indifferently, "Head to the Chi Dragon region and inform Long Li that Su Zhu is here to visit." Chapter 3044. Su Zhu? Why does this name sound so familiar? The true dragon seemed to have thought of something. His eyes widened as he blurted out, "Sword Realm Su Zhu, the #1 true spirit." He was only a Kongming true dragon. He didn't have the chance to follow the Hui Dragon King to the celestial tribute realm, so he naturally hadn't seen Su Zimo before. However, Sword Realm Su Zhu had been too famous in the 3,000 worlds in recent years. She was even known as the #1 true spirit since ancient times. However, it was rumored that Su Zhu was the #1 true spirit, while the one in front of him was a cave heavenly king, so he didn't immediately react. Su Zimo didn't make things difficult for the two. He released the spiritual sense suppression on the two dragons and let them return to the dragon realm. The true dragon returned to the dragon realm, but his expression was still uncertain. He said in a deep voice, "I'm going to the Chi Dragon realm now. If you continue to fool me, you will suffer the wrath of the dragons." Then the two dragons took to the sky and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The monkey looked at the backs of the two dragons. His anger still hadn't dissipated. He said indignantly, "Big brother, from the looks of it, those rumors weren't groundless. These dragons are indeed too arrogant. The so-called war between the dragons and the phoenixes was caused by these dragons." Su Zimo remained silent. Along the way, the two had heard many rumors. At some point, the dragons that had been hibernating in the dragon realm suddenly began to wage war. They conquered the surrounding realms of various sizes and suppressed other races. After all, the dragon realm was a super large realm. Coupled with the strength of the dragons themselves, there were almost no realms or races that could contend against the dragons' armies. After the dragons conquered a realm, they would consider themselves the rulers and rule over the billions of beings in that realm. Under the constant conquest, the dragon realm's territory rapidly expanded. Under such circumstances, it was inevitable that there would be some conflicts with the Wudong realm. These two were both super large realms. Even though there had been conflicts in the past, both realms were wary of each other. Both realms would try their best to resolve the conflict. But this time, the Wutong realm's stance was also unusually strong. The conflict between the two sides escalated until a realm war finally broke out. Dragons were indeed one of the strongest races due to their powerful bloodline. However, this did not mean that dragons were nobler than other races. Although the human race was naturally weak, they had made up the majority of great emperors since ancient times. The butterfly race was even weaker, but in this era, Daiyu had risen to power and intimidated all races. It was common for dragons to have a sense of superiority, even in Tianhuang mainland. But just now, the two dragons had shown too much hostility towards Su Zimo and his companion, and there was a kind of contempt that came from the bottom of their hearts. Su Zimo did not have much contact with the dragons of the 3,000 worlds. The only ones he had a good relationship with were Hui Dragon King and Long Li. At the very least, he didn't feel any sense of superiority from the two of them. The war between the dragons and the phoenixes was a sensitive period. There might be a reason for the two dragons' behavior. In any case, Su Zimo saw that the two dragons were too hostile and did not directly visit Long Li. Instead, he used Su Zhu's name to visit Long Li. Be it Su Zhu or Long Li, the two true spirits did not dare to be negligent. As expected, not long after, Long Li rushed over from the dragon world. Although he looked tired, Long Li was pleasantly surprised when he saw Su Zimo. Before he came close, he waved his arm and shouted with a smile, "Big brother Su Zhu." Su Zimo also smiled and nodded, cupping his hands. "I hope Taoist Long Li won't take offense at my sudden visit. Big brother Su Zhu, you don't have to be so polite with me. I'll only be happy that you came to see me. Why would I take offense?" Long Li said, "As long as you're willing to come, I'll welcome you at any time." "This is?" Long Li turned to Monkey. Su Zimo said, "He's my sworn brother. His surname is Yuan." "Hello, big brother Yuan." Long Li called out and cupped his hands slightly, showing that he was very courteous. "Caw-caw." Monkey grinned when he heard that. "You're good too. You're pleasing to the eye and better at talking than the two little dragons earlier on." Monkey was still brooding about what happened earlier on. As though he heard something, Long Li frowned and asked, "Did Long Gui and Long Li make things difficult for you guys earlier on?" "It's not that difficult," Su Zimo waved it off nonchalantly. "It's just that they're hostile. It's understandable in the midst of a battle." Long Li had a complicated expression when he heard that and sighed gently. "Big brother Su, you guys should have heard some rumors about the battle of the dragon and phoenix when you came, right?" Su Zimo looked at Long Li's expression and asked in a deep voice, "Are those rumors true?" Long Li pursed his lips and nodded. Su Zimo was puzzled and asked with a frown, "Why do the dragons want to start wars and conquer other worlds? In fact, they even want to rule over and enslave other races?" For several eras, the dragons had not done something as such. Long Li said, "The dragons have always been in hibernation in the dragon world. Typically, they would not stir up trouble, nor would any world dare to provoke them. However, thousands of years ago, a concept gradually emerged in the dragon world and it became widespread. Among the myriad of living beings, the dragon race should be supreme, and the other races should be slaves. If they refuse to submit, they'll be killed." Su Zimo's heart sank when he heard that. From the looks of it, the reason why the true dragon called Long Gui was so hostile towards them was not because of the battle of the dragon and phoenix, but because of this. Su Zimo asked, "No one among the dragons stopped such a crazy idea?" At first, there were naturally some dragons who objected. Long Li shook his head and said, "However, these voices were gradually suppressed and this concept was indeed acknowledged by many dragons. Later on, there were no other voices." "Who suppressed it?" Su Zimo asked immediately. Long Li seemed to be wary as he looked around and pursed his lips without saying anything. Monkey sneered and said, "No wonder no world races are willing to help you dragons and even switch sides." Long Li did not say anything in the face of Monkey's mockery and merely smiled bitterly. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and asked, "You'll probably cause some trouble for meeting us this time, right?" Long Li hesitated for a moment and said, "It's naturally unavoidable to attract some criticism. However, I'm the only supreme true spirit of the dragon world after all. Ordinary dragons won't dare to provoke me. Don't worry, brother Su. With me leading the way, no one in the dragon world will dare to make things difficult for you guys." Long Li's confidence was not only because she was a supreme true spirit. The Chi Dragon King was behind her as well. The Chi Dragon King was one of the 5 dragon kings of the dragon world and guarded the Chi Dragon region. Be it in terms of status or combat strength, he was at the peak. "Brother Su, the reason why you're here is to take a look at Long Ran, right?" Long Li was extremely intelligent and quickly sensed Su Zimo's intentions. Yes, Su Zimo did not hide anything and nodded. If possible, I'd like to take him away. During his conversation with Long Li earlier on, Su Zimo felt a hint of uneasiness. The situation of the Battle of the Dragon and Phoenix was far more complicated than he had imagined. There were dangers in the dragon world as well. In fact, there was an indescribable sense of strangeness. End of chapter. Chapter 3045. The coiling dragon formation that protected the dragon world was formed by the 5 dragon regions. Each dragon region guarded an area and was extremely important. Each dragon region had a massive planet and 10 ancient cities built in the starry sky. For example, the Torch Dragon domain was formed by Planet Torch Dragon and 10 dragon cities. Be it Planet Torch Dragon or the 10 dragon cities, they were the core of the coiling dragon formation. Their positions were special and extremely crucial. Long Ran was in Beacon City, one of the 10 dragon cities in the Torch Dragon domain. Su Zimo and Monkey followed Long Li to the Torch Dragon domain. Along the way they listened to Long Li talk about Long Ran. Can this coiling dragon formation defend against Imperial Lords? Monkey was curious. It can't. Long Li shook his head slightly. However, if an Imperial Lord expert appears outside the dragon world and attacks the coiling dragon formation, the Imperial Lords of the Dragons will sense it and appear immediately. Furthermore, ever since the previous War of the Emperors, both sides suffered heavy losses. The Imperial Lords are wary of each other and rarely attack. After pausing for a moment, Long Li said, "Brother Su, don't worry. Although the army of the Wutong world is aggressive, it's still extremely difficult for them to break through the coiling dragon formation. Long Ran won't be in any danger in Beacon City." With Long Li leading the way, the 3 of them were unobstructed in the Torch Dragon domain. Along the way they encountered some other dragons that did attract some strange gazes mixed with hostility. However, those dragons recognized Long Li's identity and did not say anything. About half a day later, the 3 of them arrived at Beacon City. From afar, Beacon City looked like a massive object standing in the starry sky. Although it was only a city, its size and area were not inferior to the 4 great immortal kingdoms of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. When they got close, they could clearly see the huge scarlet rocks piled up on the city walls of Beacon City. There were some traces of swords and flames on them. Long Li should have come to look for Long Ran a few times and was familiar with the place. He led Su Zimo and Monkey towards Long Ran's cave abode. Walking on the streets of Beacon City, Su Zimo spread out his divine sense to investigate. Each of the 4 great celestial kingdoms in the Divine Firmament Celestial Realm had a population of several billion. In this city of dragons, which was comparable to the 4 great immortal kingdoms, there were only tens of thousands of dragons in the southern region of the city. Based on this calculation, there were only a few 100,000 dragons in the entire Beacon City. The scarcity of dragons was evident from this. Under such circumstances, they really couldn't afford the consumption of a realm war. Just as Su Zimo was pondering, his heart skipped a beat. He seemed to have sensed something and looked at a team of dragons passing by not far away. The leader of this group was a tall man with a head full of red hair. His face was rough and his eyes were like torches. He was patrolling the area. When he saw that person, Su Zimo stopped in his tracks instinctively and smiled. The red-haired man seemed to have sensed something and turned his head to look. Their eyes met. The red-haired man froze on the spot. At first, the red-haired man's face was still a little blank. For a moment he didn't dare to believe it. But soon, a look of ecstasy appeared on his face. "Zimo!" The red-haired man shouted and could not help but burst into laughter. "Red-headed ghost." Su Zimo replied with a smile as well. The red-haired man was none other than the red-headed ghost, Long Ran. Long Ran rushed over in huge strides and hugged Su Zimo without caring about the gazes of others. His face was filled with excitement as he laughed non-stop. "Good lad, you finally?" Long Ran hammered Su Zimo's chest heavily. However, his expression changed as he gasped and his mouth twitched in pain. "Cough cough. You're finally willing to look for me?" Long Ran coughed gently and retracted his red and swollen palm without a trace, saying as though nothing had happened, "I heard that you're really mighty outside. You're the #1 true spirit in history." Before Su Zimo could say anything, Long Li suddenly interrupted from the side and looked at Long Ran with a frown. "What did you call him? Zimo?" Long Ran was very smart. He rolled his eyes and instantly reacted. However, he was excited to reunite with Su Zimo and did not think too much about it. When he heard Long Li's question, he laughed and said, "Well, his surname is Su and his name is Zhu." "His name is Zimo?" That made sense. However, Longli was not that easy to fool. He looked at Su Zimo doubtfully with a hint of suspicion in his eyes. My name is indeed Su Zimo. Su Zimo did not continue hiding and explained, back then I was hunted down in the heaven realm and had no choice but to change my name to Su Zhu to cultivate in the sword world. That was not a secret to begin with. After entering the grotto heaven realm, there was even less need for Su Zimo to hide. Moreover, Longli trusted him very much. If he continued to be secretive, he would not be honest enough. Longli was not angered because of that. However, he still clenched his fists and pretended to threaten, "You've already lied to me twice. If I find out that there's a next time, Su Zimo smiled and looked at Long Ran. Sweeping with his spirit consciousness, he chuckled. Red-headed ghost, your cultivation speed has lagged. You've only just entered the true self realm. The two of them had always been like that. They often bickered at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley, and it was nothing much for them to make fun of each other. If they were in Tianhuang mainland, Long Ran would have retaliated long ago. Now that he heard Su Zimo's words, Long Ran seemed to be touched and gradually retracted his smile. Indeed, I can't compare to others after ascending. All these years, if not for little sister Long Li's help, I would still be at the Divine Essence realm. Let's go to my cave abode and have a chat. Let's drink a few jars of good wine. Long Ran conversed with the dragons behind him before waving his hand and leaving with Su Zimo and the other two. Commander Long Ran actually knows those two foreign races and has a good relationship with them? He's someone who ascended from the lower world after all. He befriends anyone. There are many clansmen with higher cultivation backgrounds than him in Beacon City. I wonder what the city lord sees in him. Not long after Long Ran left, some of the dragons in the group began discussing. Even Long Ran could hear them, let alone Su Zimo and Monkey. However, his expression was normal, as though he did not hear anything. It was only after he brought the three of them back to his cave abode that Long Ran sighed softly. When I first ascended, the dragon world was not like this. The dragons did not look down on their clansmen who ascended from the lower world either. Although the dragons at that time thought highly of themselves, they did not have any inexplicable hostility towards foreign races, nor did they want to kill them. However, all these years, Su Zimo said in a low voice, I'm here this time round because I want to take you away. Initially he only had an idea. Now that he was in the dragon world and saw the situation around him, he was even more certain of this idea. All these years, Long Ran was extremely disappointed in the dragons and did not have much attachment to the dragon world. However, he was still hesitant to leave with a great battle ahead of them. Since we have the chance to leave, let's go. Long Li sighed as well. If this continues, no one knows how long the dragon world can last. Is there no possibility of stopping the battle? Long Ran asked. Long Li shook his head and smiled bitterly. Both sides have lost emperors and are already at war. Who has the face and ability to stop a battle that involves hundreds of realms? Unless an emperor descends, or perhaps Emperor Araki Takashi of the Great Wilderness appears. What the hell? Long Ran's ears perked up. He looked at Su Zimo and then at Long Li and asked with widened eyes, Araki Takashi? Chapter 3046. The dragons had always been in a state of war. Now that they had retreated to the dragon world, news was cut off. Apart from the emperors of the dragon world, even some dragon kings had only vaguely heard some rumors about the battle of the Grand Wilderness, let alone Long Ran, a dragon who had just entered the true self realm. Long Li had also heard about this from the Hui Dragon King. Long Li did not know what Long Ran was thinking and thought that he was curious about Emperor Araki Takashi, so he explained simply, it said that Emperor Araki Takashi is known as the #1 person below the emperors. He suppressed more than 100 emperors single-handedly and was invincible. Long Ran's eyes widened and his gaze drifted towards Su Zimo. Su Zimo was expressionless and merely nodded gently. Others might not know Araki Takashi, but Long Ran knew that Su Zimo's true identity as Wu Dao was Araki Takashi. However, he was not sure if that Emperor Araki Takashi was the same person as the one he knew. Long Ran was only certain when he saw Su Zimo's slight movement. Even the celestial tribute world was defeated in front of him and had to return in defeat. A wisp of admiration flashed in Long Li's eyes, and he said, Unfortunately, not to mention me, even the imperial monarchs of the dragon dimension don't have the fate to become friends with a figure like Martial Monarch Huang. Ah. Of course, Long Ran would not casually reveal this matter, but he could not help but laugh out loud. What are you laughing at? Long Li furrowed his brows as he looked at Long Ran, who was laughing incessantly. He simply could not understand what was so funny about this matter. The monkey also knew the details and winked at Long Ran. Long Ran waved his hand and patted his chest. I know Araki Takashi. Ha! You know Emperor Araki Takashi? Long Li looked at Long Ran with a puzzled expression. He didn't understand what was wrong with him. Of course. Long Ran said seriously, we've known each other for many years and are very familiar with each other. There's no need to talk about our relationship. This was indeed the truth. Long Li gazed at Long Ran's serious expression, and he restrained himself for a long time before bursting into laughter in the end. He rolled his eyes at Long Ran and said, How do you know Imperial Monarch Araki Takashi? Stop boasting. Haha. Long Ran also laughed loudly and said, You little girl, I told you the truth but you didn't believe me. As if I'd believe you. Long Li pursed her lips and said, You've been staying in the dragon world ever since you ascended. How would you know Emperor Araki Takashi? Araki Takashi, that kid. Long Ran had just opened his mouth when Long Li frowned and glared at him angrily. Long Ran coughed softly and changed his words. Araki Takashi also ascended from the lower world. We're all in the same realm. I even taught him many Dao techniques back then. Dizzy. Long Li rolled her eyes and said, The more you talk, the more ridiculous you become. You taught Emperor Araki Takashi Dao techniques? He's now the #1 person below the Emperor. You're just a little true dragon now. Long Ran's face twitched and he said with a dark expression, You little girl, how can you say that? You're hurting me. Long Li said, I heard from Mother that Emperor Araki Takashi was so furious and started a massacre because over 100 emperors joined forces to bully his Dao partner. Even during the battle, Emperor Araki Takashi held his Dao partner's hand and protected her by his side. Hearing this, Long Ran's heart skipped a beat and he said, Araki Takashi's Dao partner is a blood-robed woman, right? Long Li looked at Long Ran in surprise. Then she asked with a faint smile, Why? Are you familiar with the Blood Butterfly Demon Emperor? Familiar? Not to that extent. Long Ran was still a little afraid of Dai-Yu and did not dare to joke casually. He said honestly, We've met once. Long Li naturally did not believe him. The Blood Butterfly Demon Emperor was a living being from the upper world. Long Ran had ascended from the lower world and had never left the dragon world. How could he have met the Blood Butterfly Demon Emperor? Of course Long Li did not point this out. She only thought that Long Ran was talking nonsense because he was excited to reunite with an old friend. She would not take it seriously. Long Li smiled. I was just saying casually. Even if Emperor Araki Takashi really comes, I'm afraid he won't be able to suppress the experts of hundreds of realms. Don't try to make connections with others. The four of them were together. Although they were of different races, there was no barrier between them. They chatted happily and drank until dawn. Under Su Zimo's persuasion, Long Ran agreed to leave the dragon world. A true dragon like him could not affect the situation in a war between a super major world. There was no difference whether he was there or not. However, after ascending he had been cultivating in the dragon world. Although some dragons looked down on him, he made some friends. He was still reluctant to leave the dragon world and these friends of the dragons. The city lord of Beacon City treated him well. Otherwise he would not have let him, a true dragon who had just stepped into the true self realm, be the leader of a region. Over the next few days Long Ran brought Su Zimo and the other two to wander around Beacon City. He told them about some of the interesting things that had happened after he ascended. Since he had already decided to leave, there was no need to rush. Su Zimo knew that Long Ran was a person who valued friendship. He was using this method to bid farewell to the dragon world and Dragon City. 10 days later, the four of them went to the city lord's residence to bid farewell to the city lord of Beacon City, Long Feng. The city lord of Beacon City, a peak king. Guarding Dragon City all year round, this city lord clearly exuded an iron-blooded murderous aura. He was imposing without being angry and did not look easy to get along with. However, the city lord of Beacon City did not make things difficult for Long Ran. He only felt that it was a pity. There was no enmity on the city lord's face towards Su Zimo and the monkey. We're in the middle of a war now. The Wutong world has not made any moves and is unable to break into the dragon world. This place is still considered safe. Long Feng said, but if you leave the dragon world and lose the protection of the coiling dragon formation, you'll have to be careful. Long Feng reminded him before he looked at Long Ran and said, stay and eat something. Consider it a farewell dinner. The fact that you were able to ascend from the lower world proves that your talent is not bad. You just lack a bit of opportunity and luck. How far you can cultivate in the future will depend on your luck. As he spoke, Long Feng took out a storage bag and handed it to Long Ran. There are some things in there that I can't use. I'll give them to you. Long Ran was touched. He received it with both hands and bowed in thanks. The four of them stayed in the city lord's residence and ate some immortal peaches and spirit fruits before preparing to leave. Just as they reached the entrance of the hall, Su Zimo suddenly paused. He seemed to have sensed something and frowned as he looked at the end of the starry sky. What's wrong? Long Ran asked. The monkey tilted his head. Under the long fur on both sides of his face, a second pair of ears quietly appeared and moved slightly. Thereafter, he stared at his feet with a bewildered expression. Right then, Long Feng raised his head suddenly and his expression changed starkly. Two streaks of flames burst forth from his eyes as he roared, "Enemy attack!" That dragon roar pierced through metal and stone and pierced into the clouds, breaking the peace of Beacon City instantly. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 3047. Hurry up and leave. Go to the teleportation formation and head straight to Planet Torch Dragon. Long Feng could not be bothered with Su Zimo and the rest. He took out a message talisman from his storage bag and tore it apart. Then he soared into the sky without looking back, transforming into a gigantic dragon that was thousands of feet long and hovering above Beacon City. Flames were already burning on Long Feng's body. The flames illuminated the starry sky and awakened countless dragons in Beacon City. Dozens of cracks appeared in the starry sky above Beacon City, and figures with powerful auras walked out. They were all Grotto Heaven kings. Among them were even pinnacle kings. Following closely behind these kings, huge spirit boats and ships appeared. One could clearly see the countless figures standing on them. The experts on these spirit boats were led by the true spirits. The rest were mostly at the earth and heaven essence realms. After the battle broke out, the Grotto Heaven kings would fight in the starry sky. The true spirits on these spirit boats would take the opportunity to kill their way into Beacon City. Impossible. Long Li's face turned pale when he saw this scene. He muttered softly, with a coiling dragon formation, how could so many people kill their way here silently? Could there be a problem with the coiling dragon formation? Long Feng. In the starry sky, the leader was a pinnacle king in black robes. His face was abnormally pale and his lips were purple. He shouted, "Today is the day you die. You think you can take down Beacon City with just a dozen kings? You're too naive." Long Feng was not afraid at all. He faced the dozen kings alone in the starry sky and was not at a disadvantage. Boom. At this moment, a loud sound came from the east of Beacon City. It caused the entire ancient city to shake as though the foundation of Beacon City was shaken. Not good. Long Li seemed to have realized something and exclaimed, "That's the location of the teleportation formation." Planet Torch Dragon was connected to the 10 dragon cities by teleportation formations. Even if there was a problem in one of the cities, they could use the teleportation formation to quickly move the dragons. But now, before Beacon City was taken, there was a problem with the teleportation formation. How could this be? Long Ran's expression was solemn as he said in a low voice, "Beacon City hasn't been breached yet. How could the teleportation array within the city have been destroyed?" Now the enemy's army was still confronting Long Feng outside the city, but the teleportation portal in the city had been destroyed. It was done by experts from the Tomb Realm. Su Zimo said slowly. No wonder. Monkey had a look of realization as he said, "I heard some strange sounds coming from beneath Beacon City. The experts of the Necropolis realm dug their way through Beacon City and destroyed the teleportation portal." Su Zimo spread out his consciousness and sensed that the Tomb Realm expert who had emerged from the teleportation portal was also a heavenly cavern monarch. The great army in the starry sky was clearly led by experts from the Tomb Realm. Among the 4 peak kings, 3 of them were Tomb Realm kings. As for the rest of the Grotto Heaven kings, other than a few from the Tomb Realm, there were also some from mid-level and low-level realms. Long Feng, who was in mid-air, sensed that the teleportation portal had been destroyed. His heart sank and the fury in his eyes burned even brighter. It was obvious that the other party had come prepared. Furthermore, they were going to kill all the dragons in Beacon City. Today Beacon City will not be spared. The leading peak king waved his hand with a murderous aura. "Corpse Yuan, how dare you!" Long Feng roared and waved his massive dragon body, bringing with it wind and flames. Notwithstanding the fact that he could not save the hundreds of thousands of dragons in Beacon City, even he was in a precarious situation and could not protect himself. "Brother Su, leave with Long Ran." Hurry and escape. Although Long Li was a supreme true spirit, she was too young after all. She lost her composure and her mind was in a mess after encountering such a sudden turn of events. She merely thought that Su Zimo and the others should not be implicated in this battle. As for herself, she was a supreme true spirit of dragons after all. No matter what, she could not escape or retreat. Even if she was facing thousands of true spirit experts and a Grotto Heaven King of the Tomb Realm. It was clear that the Tomb Realm King had already sensed them and was charging over with an army. The appearance of the terrifying battle corpse at the front was getting clearer and more menacing. Long Li grit her teeth and took out the dragon's horn from her storage bag with a resolute gaze. However, against such a ferocious corpse king and the true spirit army that was surging over like a tidal wave, she still felt a sense of fear. She was not afraid of death. However, she was afraid that after she died, she would be refined into an ugly and menacing battle corpse by the Tomb Realm cultivators like the King of Dragons. At this moment, a broad and warm palm landed on her slightly trembling shoulder. End of chapter. Chapter 3048. Instinctively, Long Li turned around and met with two calm gazes. For some reason, those two gazes seemed to be able to pierce the depths of her heart, calming her restless mind and dispelling her fear. This was an extremely profound visual technique of the Buddhist monasteries that could calm one's mind. Su Zimo cultivated a forbidden secret manual of the Buddhist monasteries and even formed a grotto heaven of the Buddhist monasteries. His Buddhist dharma was profound and even surpassed that of an eminent monk who specialized in Buddhist dharmic formulations. Don't panic. Su Zimo pressed down on Long Li's shoulder and said in a deep voice, "You should stand out now and gather all the dragons in Beacon City to prepare for battle." Right now, Long Feng was entangled with more than 10 grotto heavens and could not break free. In Beacon City, only Long Li had that prestige. More importantly, if they could not gather the dragons, they would definitely be defeated by the thousands of true spirit experts in the army behind them. Only by gathering the dragon tribe together could they protect more dragon tribe members and even unleash a powerful counterattack. Of course, Su Zimo could make a move. However, he was alone after all and could not take care of all the dragons in Beacon City. But, although Long Li's mind had calmed down, she still felt a deep sense of despair towards the fate of Beacon City in this battle. Even if all the true dragons in Beacon City were gathered together, there would only be slightly more than 100 of them. The number of true spirit experts on the other side was in the tens of thousands. The difference was too great. No matter how strong the dragon's physique and bloodline were, they could not defend against the attacks of thousands of living beings. Furthermore, there was a peerless king of the Tomb Realm on the battlefield of Beacon City. The battle corpse at the front alone was enough to flatten every corner of Beacon City and destroy everything. More importantly, the city lord of Dragon Beacon City was surrounded by more than 10 kings in the battlefield of kings in the starry skies and was at a complete disadvantage. He could not even protect himself. Once Long Feng was defeated, what was the point of gathering all the dragons even if she could? Don't think too much. Go and gather the dragons. Su Zimo seemed to have seen through the many thoughts in Long Li's mind, but he didn't explain much. He only said indifferently, "As for the rest, leave it to me." Su Zimo sighed in his heart. He really didn't want to be involved in the war between the dragons and the phoenixes. No matter what the cause of this battle was, it had nothing to do with him. Even now, with his methods and the Taiyin Yang escape, he could take Long Ran away at any time. However, Beacon City was about to be destroyed. Long Ran had lived here for many years. If he just turned around and left like this, it would be too heartless to Long Ran. Moreover, Hui Dragon King and Long Li had both helped him in the Celestial Tribute Domain. He and Long Li knew each other even earlier. Previously, the fortunate encounters and treasures he had obtained on the Dragon Abyss planet had also come from Long Li's father. With all sorts of reasons intertwined, there was no way he could stay out of this and leave. Su Zimo soared into the air and headed towards the peerless king of the Tomb Realm who was rampaging through Beacon City. After taking a few steps, he suddenly paused and glanced sideways. Don't forget that you're a supreme true spirit. You don't have to fear no matter how many true spirit experts you face. Furthermore, Monkey can help you as well. Monkey grinned without any hint of nervousness on his face. Instead, there was excitement in his eyes that shone with a scarlet light. He tilted his head and a thin needle fell out of his ear. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into a pitch-black rod. The rod was filled with cracks and shone with a faint golden light. Monkey rested the rod on his shoulder and looked at the approaching army of 10 million true spirit experts and true spirit experts. Instinctively, he licked his lips in anticipation. Haha. The eyes of the leader of the Tomb Realm True Spirit lit up when he caught sight of Long Li as he roared in laughter. My luck is pretty good. I've just become a Supreme True Spirit and I've met a suitable opponent here. Little sister Long Li, I'll let you play with my 2 corpses today. Boom. Before he finished his sentence, Han Chong took out 2 coffins from his storage bag and slammed them heavily on the ground, causing their lids to fall off. Brr. 2 battle corpses that shone with a metallic luster leaped out of the coffins. Surrounded by corpse chi, the stench of blood filled the air as they roared loudly. Their long, sharp fingernails shone with a greenish-black glow. Supreme True Spirits. Long Li's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. In the True Spirit battlefield, the only advantage the dragons had was her. However, the other party had a Supreme True Spirit as well. If she was held back by Han Chong, how could the remaining 100-odd True Dragons defend against the slaughter of the True Spirit army? At this moment, Long Li glanced over from the corner of his eye and saw that a figure had already rushed out. Monkey carried his long staff and charged towards Han Chong without any fear in the face of the thousands of soldiers and horses that were charging towards him. Brother Yuan, don't go. Long Li's expression changed as she exclaimed. The other party was a Supreme True Spirit with terrifying combat strength and was not someone other True Spirit experts could take head-on. As for the Supreme True Spirits of the Tomb Realm, they were even more troublesome. Even Long Li did not dare to say that he could win against Han Chong. If both parties were to release supreme divine powers to fight, the experts of the Tomb Realm could still control the battle corpses to attack. However, they would be severely injured if they were careless. Han Chong could refine 2 battle corpses and was even more troublesome to deal with if he was stronger. However, Monkey was way too fast. The moment Long Li shouted, he was only a step away from the 2 battle corpses at the front. Long Li did not have time to think and chased after him hurriedly. However, she was still a step too late. Monkey and the battle corpses had already made contact and a huge battle broke out. Boom. One of the battle corpses roared and pounced towards the monkey without any fear of death. The terrifying thing about battle corpses was not only the corpse chi and poison on their bodies. Most importantly, they could not feel any pain or fear. Moreover, the strength of their physical bodies was not inferior to that of divine weapons. Even if they were beaten to a pulp with broken tendons and bones, they still possessed immense combat strength. Boom. Monkey did not care too much and swung his rod, smashing down on the head. With a single strike, the battle corpse in front of him was smashed into pieces and blood mist filled the air. Han Chong was shocked and his pupils constricted. His battle corpse had been refined for many years and was extremely strong. Even a pure Yang spirit treasure might not be able to injure its foundation. To think that the battle corpse would be crippled by a single strike from this shrewd monkey that appeared out of nowhere. There was naturally no way the battle corpse could continue fighting after being beaten to such a state with its head smashed into mush. Brother Yuan, be careful of the corpse blood. Long Li was shocked by what happened as well. However, she snapped out of it quickly and reminded him loudly. The battle corpses of the Tomb Realm were filled with poison. Even after being crippled, the blood mist that filled the air still possessed terrifying lethality. Han Chong looked at Monkey that was shrouded in corpse blood and sneered, "You'll have to pay with your life for destroying my battle corpse." Monkey crushed the battle corpse in front of him with a single strike and passed through the blood mist without thinking too much. When he heard Han Chong's words, Monkey raised his brow and channeled his bloodline, releasing a rumbling sound as though an extremely ancient power was awakening. In the face of that power, even Long Li, who had just charged over, felt her heart skip a beat, let alone Han Chong, who had an ordinary bloodline. Monkey merely shuddered and the blood mist of the battle corpse that stained his body turned into countless blood droplets that splattered on the ground. It had no effect on him at all. "You want to hurt me with that sort of poison blood?" Monkey glared at Han Chong, who was not far away, and grinned. Chapter 3049. Han Chong's heart skipped a beat and his expression turned grim. If the battle corpse's poison blood could not injure the immoral monkey, that would be troublesome. There was no way he could defend against the terrifying bloodline revealed by the immoral monkey and the terrifying power released by the rod earlier on if the latter closed in on him. Initially, he was prepared to use his supreme divine powers together with the battle corpse's offensive methods for Long Li. But now it seemed like he could only use it in advance. Space-time lock. Han Chong channeled his essence spirit and conjured hand seals with both hands, waving them in midair. An extremely strange power burst forth from his fingertips and enveloped Monkey. Instantly, Monkey froze on the spot and could not move at all. Not to mention his body, even the expression on his face remained the same as before. At that moment, the two powerful powers of time and space formed invisible shackles on Monkey's body. At the same time, Han Chong controlled the battle corpse to charge towards Monkey with his spirit consciousness. In his eyes, Monkey was like a fish on the chopping block in such a state that could be slaughtered at will. When Long Li saw that the situation was amiss, she hurriedly channeled her essence spirit and prepared to release the rainbow divine light to rescue Monkey from the space-time lock. However, there was still a distance between the two of them. Even if she wanted to cast a technique right now, it would be too late. Long Li was anxious. All of a sudden, the eyes of the monkey who had been frozen in place darted around. Boom. The next moment, a deafening sound echoed from Monkey's body and a gigantic phantom condensed behind him, rising from the ground with torrential battle intent. The battle soul was 1,000 feet tall, and it was almost as tall as the city walls when it stood in Beacon City. After releasing the third stance of the battle catalog, Battle Universe, Monkey broke free from the shackles of the spacetime lock instantly, and his combat strength increased exponentially. The battle corpse had just arrived and was about to face Monkey, who had broken free. Bang! Monkey swung his rod in reverse and smashed the head of the battle corpse into pieces. Its body was snapped at the waist as well. If it was just the secret skill of the battle universe, it might not have been able to release enough power to break through the shackles of the spacetime lock. However, within the monkey's body was the combination of the four bloodlines of the ape and monkey clan. Together with the secret arts of the Jianghu, this level of improvement had already surpassed the power of a supreme divine ability. The cultivators of the tomb realm were often surrounded by corpses, so their faces were all pale. Seeing this scene, Han Chong was even more frightened. Without the protection of the battle corpse and the supreme ability, Han Chong was now a Dongshu true spirit with an ordinary bloodline. Within Feng City, any Dongshu stage true dragon would be able to kill him. Han Chong turned around and fled without a second thought. Behind him there was an army of 10 million. As long as he could escape and join the army, this monkey would definitely not be able to stop them. Jia. Monkey laughed strangely and caught up to Han Chong with a single step. The long-armed blood ape was said to be able to control the sun and moon and shrink 1,000 mountains. Taking the sun and moon was referring to the long-armed sanguine ape. It was so powerful that it could even pluck the sun, moon and stars and play with them. Shrinking 1,000 mountains referred to the speed of the long-armed blood ape. One step was a distance of 1,000 mountains. Poof! The moment Han Chong turned around, Monkey had already arrived behind him. Without a second word, Monkey swung his rod and smashed down. Exclamation point. A flash of blood appeared. If even the two battle corpses refined by Han Chong could not defend against Monkey's combat imperial weapon, his body of flesh and blood was even more pathetic. With a single strike, Han Chong was smashed into a pile of blood and his essence spirit was destroyed along with his body and Tao. Although the entire process seemed slow, it happened in the blink of an eye. Long Li stood rooted to the spot with a dumbfounded expression. Before he could conjure the supreme ability of the rainbow divine light, in just 3 strikes, a supreme true spirit was beaten to death. There were no supreme abilities or advanced battle techniques. Monkey merely charged up and swung his rod 3 times in a row to kill Han Chong. Indeed, anyone who can become sworn siblings with Brother Su is a monster. Long Li calmed himself down and lamented internally. In midair. When the peerless king of the tomb realm caught sight of that, his expression turned extremely terrible as he glared at Su Zimo, who was approaching him with a chilling killing intent. After killing the ordinary king of the human race, he headed down to kill the wild monkey. The bloodline of the monkey's physique was definitely that of a superior class battle corpse. Brr. The king-level battle corpse roared towards Su Zimo and turned into a streak of light, lunging over at an astonishing speed. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged and he did not even pause in his footsteps. Just as the battle corpse was about to pounce on him, his figure flickered and he disappeared from where he stood. The next moment, Su Zimo had already arrived before the peerless king of the tomb realm. After entering the grotto heaven, he could release the 9 true dragon flash even more smoothly and at a faster speed. It was comparable to teleportation. The battle corpses of tomb realm cultivators were invulnerable to weapons, fire and water. Furthermore, they were surrounded by corpse chi and poisoned. They did not fear death and almost had no weaknesses. The greatest weakness of tomb realm cultivators was their true bodies. In a flash, Su Zimo circled around the charge of the battle corpse and arrived before the peerless king of the tomb realm. However, the moment he appeared, he felt his vision go dark. The peerless king of the tomb realm reacted even faster and was already prepared before Su Zimo appeared. Even against an ordinary king like Su Zimo, he did not dare to underestimate or be careless. Everyone else knew about the weakness of Tomb Realm cultivators, but he knew it even better. The only chance for an ordinary king to win against him was to charge straight at his true body. However, the peerless king of the Tomb Realm had long known that dragons had a secret skill that could almost teleport in battle and was prepared for it. After Su Zimo vanished, the peerless king of the Tomb Realm summoned an ancient bronze coffin with a thought and used it to block in front of him. Anyone who could cultivate to greater mastery of the Grotto Heaven realm was naturally not easy to deal with. The moment Su Zimo descended, he was trapped in a coffin. That was the flaw of the true Dragon 9 Flash. Once the landing point of the teleportation was determined, he would lose the initiative. Of course, that was only if the combat strength of both parties was similar. Haha. The peerless king of the Tomb Realm burst into laughter with a smug expression. The coffins used to store battle corpses were usually their destiny spirit treasures as well. While nourishing the battle corpses, the corpse chi and poison on the battle corpses would nourish the coffin as well. If any other living being was devoured by his battle corpse coffin, even a Grotto Heaven king would turn into a pool of blood in less than 3 days. Ching. Before the peerless king of the Tomb Realm could stop laughing, he heard an ear-piercing sound in front of him, as though a sharp weapon had sliced through the ancient bronze coffin. Immediately after, he could not help but be shocked when he caught sight of something else. He saw that the back of the ancient bronze coffin had been slashed open by someone. Inside there was a flash of green sword light that was extremely sharp. The next moment, the green-robed cultivator broke out of the coffin and a green sword beam surged over, filling the vision of the peerless king of the Tomb Realm. Exclamation point. The sword beam streaked through. The body of the peerless king of the Tomb Realm was sliced into 2 from the top of his head and his essence spirit was destroyed. He died on the spot. With the death of his true body and the support of his Dao technique, the battle corpse he refined froze on the spot and began to convulse and rot. Before long it would turn into a pool of blood. Chapter 30-50. The fact that Su Zimo killed a peerless king of the Tomb Realm was not enough to intimidate the army of 10 million charging over from Beacon City. After all, the difference in strength between the two sides was too great. In the Battle of the Kings in midair, the Tomb Realm had the absolute advantage. In everyone's opinion, even an additional ordinary king like Su Zimo would not affect the overall situation. However, on the battlefield of Beacon City, even without a supreme true spirit, they still had thousands of true spirits. If they swarmed together, Beacon City that only had slightly more than 100 true dragons would not be able to defend against them. So what if the naughty monkey was strong? So what if the dragons had a supreme true spirit? Could the two of them defend against the charge of an army of 10 million? After killing the peerless king of the Tomb Realm, Su Zimo hesitated for a moment and did not charge into the cosmos to help Long Feng right away. He was still worried about the battlefield in Beacon City. Just as he was hesitating about whether he should make a move to stabilize the battlefield below, Monkey had already collided with the incoming True Spirit army. Su Zimo merely took a few glances before feeling relieved. He turned and rushed into the cosmos, tossing 3 streaks of light into the crowd. Beacon City. Monkey's killing of a supreme True Spirit with 3 rod strikes merely caused the True Spirit army at the front to pause for a moment. However, the other party came prepared and charged over like a torrential current that caused the ground to tremble. Countless divine weapons and numinous treasures tore through the air and covered the skies in a dense cluster. Countless divine powers and secret skills burst forth, forming an unstoppable power that seemed like it wanted to engulf all living beings before it. In the face of such a terrifying killing intent, even Long Li, as a supreme true spirit, felt a trace of fear. Indeed, she knew about supreme divine powers. However, supreme divine powers were not invincible. There was a limit to the power of supreme divine powers as well. In the face of such an attack, not to mention one supreme divine ability, even 2 or 3 of them would be of no use. Even so, Long Li and Long Ran still strode forward and stood beside Monkey. "Brother Yuan, let's go together." Long Li clenched his fists. His eyes were firm and there was a trace of solemnity in them as he said loudly. However, the monkey did not care at all. Hearing that, he waved his hand and said without even turning his head, "Take care of yourselves. Don't worry about me." Before he could finish his words, Monkey leaped out once again. Against such a formation and such a terrifying attack, the monkey was completely fearless. His eyes shone with a bloody light and he did not retreat at all. The battle intent on his body was at its peak. "Fight!" The monkey let out a loud roar and stepped forward. He channeled his bloodline and a 10,000 feet tall devil ape avatar appeared, fusing with the battle soul from before. The bloodline phenomenon merged with the battle soul. At this moment, the monkey's combat strength reached its peak and even broke through some sort of barrier. Rumble. This 10,000 feet tall devil ape's movements were exactly the same as the monkey's. As it took a step forward, it stomped heavily into the crowd that was charging over. Rumble. With a loud bang, the earth quaked and the mountains shook. With that single stomp, hundreds of cultivators were stomped into meat paste and died on the spot. In fact, the monkey did not even have to look. He closed his eyes and stomped his way forward, causing the opposing army to fall into chaos. Rumble. Boom. Many divine powers and secret skills shrouded the 10,000 feet tall devil ape. 1,000, 100, or even 10,000 divine powers and secret skills could not shake that figure. However, the descent of countless divine powers and secret skills did cause quite a bit of impact on the 10,000 feet tall devil ape phantom. It turned much dimmer and almost transparent, as though it could dissipate at any moment. Countless divine weapons rained down like a rain of arrows. Clang, clang. Monkey swung his rod and waved it around, destroying countless divine weapons and spirit treasures. However, there were still countless weapons that landed on his body. To the surprise of countless true spirits, there were even sounds of metal clashing when the divine weapons landed on Monkey's body. It was as though the divine weapons were not slashing down on a body of flesh, but a diamond body. Not only that, even against such a ferocious attack they could not kill Monkey. The 10,000 feet tall devil ape phantom was still around with a frightening aura. Many wounds appeared on the monkey's body and it was dripping with blood. However, his bones were not damaged. He's not even dead? Many true spirit realm experts were shocked. Even the Long Li behind them was dumbfounded. A true spirit battle could be fought this way? Even if the bloodline of dragons was strong, they would not dare to take on the attacks of an army of 10 million in such a manner. This time round, the Long Li composed himself swiftly and released a supreme divine power. 5-colored divine light shot towards the true spirits around Monkey to provide reinforcements. Caw, caw. Monkey burst into laughter. Not only did the injuries on his body not reduce his fighting spirit, they even stimulated the wildness in his body. He silently chanted an incantation and casually pulled out a handful of blood-stained long hair from the wound. He placed it near his mouth and gently blew on it. Swash! The blood-colored fur floated in midair and danced in all directions. Right in front of everyone, they transformed into hundreds of monkey figures that were identical to him. External movement technique. Even the Empyrean lords of the blood ape realm did not cultivate this secret technique. This was a secret technique that Monkey cultivated from an ancient memory that he awakened after fusing with 4 supreme bloodlines. Every single strand of hair on his body could be transformed into a clone through this secret technique. Of course, the combat strength of the clone was far inferior to his main body. Even so, his main body had fused with 4 supreme bloodlines and was already transforming into the Chaos Fiend ape. Every single clone could still release terrifying lethality. Monkey had 84,000 feathers on his body. If Monkey was angered and created 84,000 clones in a single breath, even a Grotto Heaven King would have to flee. Of course, unless his life was on the line, there was no need for him to do that. Hundreds of Monkey's clones charging into the crowd and killing in all directions was enough to cause the true spirit army to tremble in fear. Some of the true spirits knew how to create clones as well. However, they had never seen something like this before. A single strand of hair from their body could be transformed into hundreds of clones with a single breath. Furthermore, every single one of them was lively and powerful. That was way too frightening. If they were angered by Monkey and he plucked all their hair in a single breath, wouldn't thousands of clones appear? Monkey relied on his external movement technique and rampaged through the crowd unstoppably. Right then, chaos broke out at the back of the opposing army as well. 3 figures went on a killing spree and none of the true spirits could take them head-on as they retreated in defeat. Su Zimo tossed down the 3 pure jade booklet casually and created 3 clones that joined the battlefield. Although they were 3 clones and did not possess any bloodlines, essence spirits or mystic skills, their cultivation realms were the same as Su Zimo's. Grotto Heaven realm clones were almost invincible in the battlefield of Beacon City. End of chapter. Chapter 3051. Shrouded in a purple glow, the prime clear body conjured 1,000 arms. Each arm wielded a divine weapon and spirit treasure. Sabers, spears, swords, halberds, axes, hooks, forks, bells, cauldrons, pagoda. With so many divine weapons and spirit treasures revolving around the prime clear body, it was a dazzling sight. The Prime Clear Body was also known as the Spirit Treasure Body. The Prime Clear Jade Booklet was a secret manual snatched from the hands of the Patriarch of the Academy. The Patriarch of the Academy had once used it to transform into the 8th Elder of the Academy. Shrouded in green light, the Jade Clear Body was also known as the Primordial Beginning Body. It was a supreme secret skill for body refinement. Under Su Zimo's will, the Jade Clear Body transformed into the form of the taboo Dragon Phoenix and charged into the crowd, unleashing the killing techniques of the Dragon Phoenix to their limits. The Grand Clear Body was shrouded in red light. Compared to the Prime Clear and Jade Clear bodies, the Grand Clear Body did not have any spirit treasures and its body was not strong either. However, every time the Grand Pure One attacked, there would be a true spirit expert that would fall. The Grand Clear Jade Booklet was a spirit refinement technique. Each time the Grand Clear Body attacked, it was an essence spirit secret skill. The 3 clones did not have an essence spirit, flesh or blood. Their foundation was the 3 pure Jade Booklet within their bodies. Be it the spirit treasure weapons conjured by the Prime Clear Body or the essence spirit attacks of the Grand Clear Body, they were all unleashed by the 3 pure Jade Booklet. The 3 pure Jade Booklet was the most unique of all the taboo secret manuals. It was not only a cultivation technique, it was also a weapon. Therefore, even if one obtained the cultivation techniques of the 3 pure Jade Booklet, they would not be able to conjure the 3 clones to unleash powerful combat strength without the 3 Jade Booklets. The addition of the 3 clones to the battlefield completely reversed the situation of Beacon City. The 3 clones and Monkey split the army of 10 million that charged into Beacon City into 4 regions and could only fight on their own. More importantly, there were no true spirit experts in the battlefield of Beacon City that could defend against the attacks of Monkey and the 3 clones. When Longley saw that, she was invigorated. She channeled her bloodline and blew the horn of the dragons, gathering the true dragons of Beacon City for a counterattack. Countless dragons scattered in every corner of Beacon City sensed the change in the situation and gathered towards Longley. In fact, the true spirits of the Tomb Realm were already thinking of retreating. There was only one reason why they were still holding on. After all, they still had the absolute advantage in the king's battlefield. As long as the Beacon City City Lord fell, more than a dozen kings would descend. Whatever monkey, whatever supreme true spirit, they would all die. The situation doesn't seem right. We can't hold on any longer. What's there to be afraid of? When the corpse monarch kills Long Feng, the battlefield here will quickly settle down. But that green-robed king has already gone over to help Long Feng. That person is just an ordinary king. He won't be able to affect the overall situation. On the astral battlefield, Long Feng's body was covered in wounds after fighting with the battle corpses of the other side. Especially that dragon corpse, it caused the greatest damage to him. The dragon corpse was refined by the king of the Horned Dragon clan. Among the 5 dragon bloodlines, the Horned Dragon clan had the strongest physical body and bloodline. This dragon corpse had been refined by the Corpse Origin King's secret technique and had become even more powerful. Combined with the corpse poison and corpse chi on its body, Long Feng couldn't resist it. There were a few wounds on his body. Not only were they unable to heal, they were even starting to rot. They were caused by the dragon corpse. If not for Long Feng's bloodline phenomenon and perfected grotto heaven, he would have collapsed long ago. However, under the constant attacks of more than 10 kings, especially the 4 peak kings, his perfected grotto heaven was showing signs of collapse. He couldn't hold on any longer. Roar! Long Feng reared his head and roared with a sorrowful expression. He was indignant. He could not understand. How could more than 10 kings and an army of 10 million appear in Beacon City silently? Why had he sent a message to the Illumination Dragon Planet long ago but none of his clansmen had arrived yet? Could the Illumination Dragon Planet have been attacked as well? Roar! Right at this moment, another dragon's roar rang out, exuding boundless majesty, even suppressing his voice. To be precise, it was more like the roar of dragons. Had the dragon's reinforcements finally arrived? Long Feng was invigorated and hope reignited in his heart. Instinctively, he looked towards the sound and could not help but be stunned with a hint of confusion in his eyes. Immediately after, a huge sense of disappointment surged in his heart and his eyes dimmed. The one who let out that dragon roar was the human king who came to visit a few days ago. He was only an ordinary king. Although that ordinary king had just killed a peerless king of the Tomb Realm, even if he joined the battle, it would not help and he would only lose another life. Heis. Long Feng sighed deeply in his heart. That's it. He had just regained hope only to have it extinguished instantly. The great joy and sorrow had completely destroyed his final mental defense. A series of cracks appeared on his grotto heaven that was initially on the verge of collapse. However, Long Feng was enlightened the next moment. Suddenly he felt that the pressure around him seemed to have lessened significantly. The attacks of the Corpse Origin King and the others seemed to be weakening. Am I hallucinating before my death? Long Feng smiled bitterly to himself. Right then he caught sight of a king of the Tomb Realm from the corner of his eye. Suddenly, his grotto heaven collapsed and he fell towards Beacon City from the cosmos. Long Feng's heart trembled as he looked over. He saw that the Tomb Realm King's eyes were a little dazed and there seemed to be a hint of fear on his face. However, his vitality had been cut off and he was dead. There were almost no wounds on the Tomb Realm King's body, but his primordial spirit had been torn apart in his sea of consciousness. That Tomb Realm King was dead? What was going on? Before Long Feng could react, figures from the dozen or so kings surrounding him fell from the cosmos one after another. Without exception, all the kings that fell were dead. Even though only ordinary kings had perished, such a scene was still shocking enough. Originally there were more than a dozen kings, but now half of them were dead. On the battlefield of stars, apart from the 4 pinnacle kings, there were only 5 peerless kings left. And these 5 peerless kings were all pale and bleeding from their 7 orifices. They seemed to have suffered a huge impact and the grotto heavens behind them were constantly shaking and could collapse at any time. If one looked carefully, even the 4 pinnacle kings' faces showed a trace of shock. All the ordinary kings were dead and the 5 peerless kings were severely injured. They could not form an attack on Long Feng at all. It was because of this that he suddenly felt the pressure drop. It was not an illusion. Could there be reinforcements from the clan? Long Feng looked around but could not see any dragons. On the battlefield, there was only that frail-looking green-robed man walking over. The strange thing was that the remaining 5 peerless kings were also staring at the green-robed man. Their eyes were filled with terror, and their expressions were filled with fear. Even most of the attention of the 4 peak kings had shifted to this person. Could it be that those kings were killed by this human's dragon roar? When Long Feng thought of this, he sucked in a breath of cold air. He did not feel anything because this dragon roar did not attack him at all. Chapter 3052. Long Feng knew that if he were against 1 or 2 ordinary kings, he would be able to severely injure or even kill them with his dragon roar mystic technique if they were caught off guard. That was because he was a pinnacle king of dragons after all. However, this human cultivator was clearly only at the initial success stage of the grotto heaven realm. How could he release such a terrifying sound domain mystic technique? Furthermore, it was a secret technique of the dragons. Before he could react, the situation changed once more. The green-robed human cultivator seemed to have released an ocular technique. His left eye was pitch black while his right eye was pure white. 2 beams of light, one black and one white, shot out into the void and formed a yin-yang diagram that spun slowly. The next moment, the human cultivator summoned an emerald green horsetail whisk and stirred it gently in the yin-yang diagram, rapidly writing 12 mysterious runes in the cosmos. 6 Ding 6 Jianghu, deities and ghosts disperse. The next moment, 12 heavenly gods with powerful auras descended. Wielding battle spears and swords, 6 men and 6 women charged towards the 4 pinnacle kings. This should be some sort of puppet summoning mystic technique. Long Feng murmured internally. However, his expression changed soon after. These 12 puppets, the 6 Ding 6 Jia gods, were condensed from the power of extreme yin and extreme yang. They did not have blood chi, essence spirit or grotto heavens and could not release any mystic arts or mystic techniques. However, the strength of the 6 Ding 6 Jia gods' physique and combat strength was equivalent to the essence spirit realm of the caster. After entering the grotto heaven realm, the power of Su Zimo's essence spirit increased exponentially and his cultivation realm was comparable to a perfected grotto heaven realm cultivator. This meant that the 6 Ding 6 Jia gods he released now had the combat strength of a pinnacle king in melee combat. The 12 heavenly gods scattered rapidly and each pinnacle king had to face the attacks of 3 heavenly gods. The 4 pinnacle kings also sensed the terror of the 6 Ding 6 Jia gods. With grim expressions, they hurriedly recalled their battle corpses with a thought. Among the 4 pinnacle kings, 3 of them were kings of the Tomb Realm and had weak physiques and bloodlines. Without the protection of their battle corpses, they could not defeat any of the 6 Ding 6 Jia gods in melee combat. Although the remaining king had a stronger physique than the other 3 pinnacle kings of the Tomb Realm, he could not withstand the combined attacks of 3 heavenly gods. 12 6 Ding 6 Jia gods were released, and the situation was immediately reversed. The cultivators of the Tomb Realm had powerful bodies and battle corpses that didn't fear death. However, in Su Zimo's opinion, the Tomb Realm cultivators also had many flaws. Su Zimo didn't even continue to attack. He just stood in the battlefield of stars with his hands behind his back. He calmly watched this scene. The 12 heavenly deities each had their own unique means of attack. They were extremely powerful and coordinated with each other very well. Su Zimo didn't even need to spend any effort to control the entire battle. He only needed to release a strand of his will, and the 6 Ding gods and 6 Jia gods would fight on their own. Furthermore, they would unleash their battle prowess to the extreme. The 3 peak kings of the Tomb Realm thought they could crush Luding Liujiashen with their battle corpses. However, they had still underestimated the power of this secret technique. As the most powerful secret art in the Tai chapter of the Taboo Scripture, the Luding Liujiashen had many flaws. However, in certain aspects, the 12 heavenly gods also had many innate advantages. For example, the Essence Spirit secret skills released by the Peak Kings would not cause any damage to the Luding Liujiashen. The corpse chi and poison of the battle corpses could not harm the Luding Liujiashen at all. The Luding Liujiashen was formed from the power of extreme yin and extreme yang. The source of that power came from the 2 god stones, Huzhu Zhao and Nether Glow. The power of extreme yin and extreme yang released by the 2 god stones was pure and condensed, immune to all poisons and impurities. The strength of the battle corpses was that they did not fear death or pain. It was the same for the Luding Liujiashen as well. It could be said that the battle corpses of the 3 peak kings of the Tomb Realm could not gain any advantage against the Luding Liujiashen. This battle was more like a massacre. A heavenly god was entangled with the battle corpse while the remaining 2 heavenly gods surrounded the peak kings of the Tomb Realm. In less than 10 breaths, the peak kings were killed. With the death of the 3 peak kings of the Tomb Realm, their battle corpses rotted and lost their combat strength. If the 3 peak kings of the Tomb Realm had the protection of their perfected grotto heavens, it would have been difficult for the Luding Liujiashen to injure them. However, they were bent on killing Long Feng and did not withdraw their grotto heavens. They had underestimated the power of the Luding Liujiashen. When he saw that, the peak king who had just advanced was scared out of his wits. How would he dare to stay any longer? He hurriedly withdrew his grotto heavens and prepared to escape. In less than 10 breaths, the situation of the battle changed drastically. Ordinary kings were killed by Su Zimo with a single shout. The 5 peerless kings were also severely injured and had yet to catch their breaths. They could only watch the massacre not far away in shock. With the death of the 3 peak kings of the Tomb Realm, the pressure on Long Feng decreased drastically. The only thing that was suppressing him was the grotto heavens of the peak king. Long Feng's perfected grotto heavens were already cracked and about to collapse. Now that he had a chance to catch his breath, his eyes shone brightly and blazing flames burned in them once more. He channeled his essence spirit to stabilize his grotto heavens and counterattack at the same time. If it was a one-on-one battle, that Peak King would not be Long Feng's match at all. Before he could withdraw his grotto heavens, he was suppressed by Long Feng's perfected grotto heavens and was on the verge of collapse. As for the other 12 heavenly gods, they had already charged towards him. Their spears danced and their swords were sharp. In the blink of an eye, that Peak King was sliced into bloody pieces by the 12 heavenly gods. His essence spirit was destroyed and he died. The 12 heavenly gods did not stop in their tracks. They turned around and charged towards the remaining 5 peerless kings. These 5 peerless kings had just been severely injured. Facing the 12 heavenly gods and Long Feng's attacks, they could not withstand it all. As they wailed at the side, they were buried in the starry sky and their blood splattered across Beacon City. The battlefield of Beacon City, which was originally filled with killing cries, also paused for a moment at this moment. Countless gazes were filled with shock when they saw this scene. The dragons were fine. Apart from being shocked, their morale was even higher. As for the army of the Tomb Realm, their faces were ashen as if they had lost their parents. Dead. All of them were dead. That green-robed human had just ascended into the starry sky and in less than 10 breaths, more than 10 heavenly kings were wiped out without a single survivor. What happened? Many cultivators in the Tomb Realm army could not believe what they were seeing. How could this be? Where did that human king come from? What were the methods of those 12 terrifying heavenly gods? They no longer had the chance to find out. In a battle between kings, no matter which side won, it would affect the entire situation. The initial plan of the Tomb Realm was to kill everyone and leave no one alive. Now that the dragons had won, not many of those cultivators could leave Beacon City alive. That was the cruelty of a realm war. Chapter 3053. Seeing that the situation was settled, Su Zimo recalled Lu Ding and Liu Jiaxin back to Beacon City. That's enough. Su Zimo came to Monkey's side and called out. Monkey was in the midst of killing when he was stopped by Su Zimo and was a little displeased. However, he did not say anything and put away the combat imperial weapon. Following beside Su Zimo and Long Ran, he bid farewell to Long Feng. Brother Su, thank you for your help this time round. Long Feng cupped his fists towards Su Zimo and thanked him. If not for your help, the hundreds of thousands of dragons in Beacon City would have been doomed. Even I wouldn't have been able to escape death. From this day forth you're my benefactor. Su Zimo replied, You're too kind, City Lord. I merely did it in passing. Although Su Zimo said it casually, Long Feng had a conflicted expression and chuckled bitterly. He truly could not see through Su Zimo. Indeed, Su Zimo had merely done it in passing and released a puppet's secret skill with a casual roar. However, more than 10 kings were wiped out with just 2 moves. City Lord, Su Zimo pondered for a moment. The sudden attack of the Tomb Realm army this time round is too strange. There's still no response from Illumination Dragon Planet. You should head back and take a look. There's no need, Long Feng waved it off with a firm expression. Illumination Dragon Planet has the Illumination Dragon King and dozens of Dragon Kings guarding it. There won't be any major problems. Furthermore, I have to guard Beacon City and the Formation Core. I can't leave casually. Pausing for a moment, Long Feng looked at the Tomb Realm army that was fleeing into the cosmos and said with a cold expression, Furthermore, there are still ants that haven't been killed. Su Zimo frowned. He had a feeling that the sudden arrival of the Tomb Realm army this time round was not as simple as it seemed. The Tomb Realm belonged to the Alliance army of Wudong World. Logically speaking, Wudong World should be the main force in such a war. In this surprise attack on Beacon City, why didn't the Wudong World and the Blood World, these super large worlds, show up? Not even a single cultivator was present? Under the situation where Candle Dragon Planet could provide reinforcements at any time, only a dozen or so kings came to attack Beacon City. Even if they could take it down, the dragons would be able to take back Beacon City at any time. What was the use of such a surprise attack? Su Zimo vaguely felt that something was wrong, but seeing that Long Feng had already made up his mind, and that he was an outsider, it was not good for him to persuade him. Brother Su, don't worry. Long Feng seemed to notice Su Zimo's worries and said, These corpse herders from the Tomb Realm are probably here to test the waters. In a while, I'll send a few people back to Candle Dragon and report the situation here. As long as Candle Dragon is on guard, it shouldn't be a big problem. Long Li said in a deep voice, City Lord, I'm going to torch Dragon Planet to take a look at the situation there. If there is any news, I'll send you a message at any time. That's even better. Long Feng nodded. I still don't have enough manpower here. This saves me the trouble of sending more people over. The teleportation formation in Beacon City had to be repaired and he had to hunt down the fleeing Tomb Realm army. He had to check the coiling dragon formation personally to see if there was anything wrong with it. Brother Su, are you guys leaving as well? Long Li looked at Su Zimo. Initially, Su Zimo and the other 2 were prepared to leave. However, such an unforeseen event caused them to stay until now. Now that the situation in Beacon City was settled, Su Zimo was prepared to leave. However, when he heard that Long Li wanted to head to Candle Dragon Planet, he frowned and hesitated. Su Zimo said in a deep voice, I'll accompany you to Candle Dragon Planet. The teleportation formation is broken. I can tear through the void and bring you over. That'll save you a lot of time. We can leave at any time. It won't make a difference. Sure. Long Li smiled. If you guys accompany me to Candle Dragon Planet, we can meet the Candle Dragon King together. He'll definitely thank you handsomely when he finds out about this. Don't decline when the time comes. Su Zimo merely smiled faintly and did not comment. There were some things that he did not say explicitly. Long Feng sent a message to Candle Dragon Planet but there was no reply. In his opinion, there were only 2 possibilities. First, there was something wrong with the message talisman. Second, there was something wrong with Candle Dragon Planet. Su Zimo did not want to be involved in the war between the dragons and phoenixes. However, he was still worried about Long Li after knowing her for so many years and offered to send her back. If nothing happened on Candle Dragon Planet, it would not be too late for them to leave. Brother Su, thank you for your trouble. Long Feng cupped his fists and bade farewell to Su Zimo. Thereafter, he turned around and led the dragon's army to hunt down the remaining Tomb Realm cultivators in Beacon City. Su Zimo swiped his hand casually through the void and created a gap, leading Monkey, Long Ran and Long Li into the spatial tunnel. In less than 10 breaths, the 4 of them arrived near Candle Dragon Planet. From the outside there was nothing unusual about Candle Dragon Planet. The moment the four of them appeared, a Dragon King on Candle Dragon Planet sensed them and soared into the air, arriving before them in the blink of an eye. Outsiders. When the Dragon King caught sight of Su Zimo and Monkey, his expression turned cold and his eyes shone with killing intent. He was about to kill them. Fire Dragon King. Seeing that the situation was bad, Longley could not be bothered about etiquette and hollered hurriedly, "They're the benefactors of us dragons. How dare you?" Benefactors? The Fire Dragon King raised his brow and swept his spirit consciousness across Su Zimo and Monkey's spirit consciousness. Immediately after, he sneered, "How can a human and monkey be worthy of being the benefactors of dragons?" Longley shouted, "Earlier on, Beacon City was ambushed by the Tomb Realm. If not for Brother Su and Brother Yuan, hundreds of thousands of people would have been slaughtered mercilessly. Isn't that a favor to the dragons?" The Fire Dragon King narrowed his gaze and his expression changed. "How did you guys know that the Tomb Realm ambushed Beacon City?" Longley replied, "We came from Beacon City." Right from the beginning, Su Zimo had not said a single word. However, at that moment he suddenly asked, "You didn't know that Beacon City was ambushed?" "I didn't know." After a moment of hesitation, the Fire Dragon King replied coldly. Su Zimo was expressionless and merely looked at him deeply. The Fire Dragon King was not telling the truth. If he did not know that Beacon City was ambushed and suddenly heard Longley say that, he should have asked about how Beacon City was doing and what was going on with the Tomb Realm ambushing. However, what he was most concerned about was how Longley knew about it. That reaction proved that he already knew about it. When he heard Longley say that they had just come from Beacon City, a look of surprise flashed through the Fire Dragon King's eyes. "I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I want to see the Illumination Dragon King." Longley harumphed softly before suddenly sending a voice transmission to the Illumination Dragon Planet, shouting, "Illumination Dragon King, requests an audience." Su Zimo praised internally. Longley was smart and should have sensed that something was amiss as well. At that moment, the Fire Dragon King suddenly smiled. Come over." Right then, an old voice sounded from the depths of the Illumination Dragon Planet. When Longley heard that voice, he heaved a sigh of relief and nodded towards Su Zimo. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 3054. Longley brought Su Zimo, Monkey and Long ran to the Illumination Dragon Star and headed straight for the palace of the Illumination Dragon King. The Flame Dragon King did not stop them and merely hung behind the four of them with a mocking smile. Su Zimo frowned slightly in deep thought. "Brother Su, there should be something wrong with the Flame Dragon King." Right then, Longley sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. "I suspect that he was the one who intercepted the message of the City Lord of Dragon Beacon City." "But why?" There was a hint of confusion in Longley's voice. Why would the Flame Dragon King do that? Why would he betray his own race? Could he have some difficulties? Longley was still unwilling to believe it. Su Zimo said, "Everything will be clear when we meet the Illumination Dragon King." Before long, Su Zimo's group of four arrived before the Illumination Dragon Palace. The moment they entered the hall, they felt a heat wave surge towards them. This majestic hall was built above the crater of a volcano. Boiling lava flowed beneath their feet, bubbling with boiling hot air. Giant rocks floated on top of it. In the middle of the hall sat a red-robed old man with a head of scarlet hair and graying temples. However, the red-robed old man sat in the middle with a burning gaze and a dignified aura. Under the illumination of the lava beneath his feet, his face was flushed and it was clear that he was still in peak condition. Longley's group of four stood on a gigantic rock and floated forward slowly against the flow of lava. The Flame Dragon King did not follow them in and merely stood at the entrance of the hall. Greets the Illumination Dragon King. Longley went forward and bowed. As the supreme true spirit of dragons and her mother was the Nightmare Dragon King who was on equal footing with the Illumination Dragon King, Longley was naturally familiar with her. "There's no need for formalities." The Illumination Dragon King nodded slightly before turning to look at Su Zimo and Monkey. "Another race?" The Illumination Dragon King murmured with an expressionless face. "I am Su Zimo. Greetings, Torch Dragon King." Su Zimo greeted him calmly, neither servile nor overbearing. Torch Dragon King did not respond and only glanced at Su Zimo indifferently. Su Zimo smiled indifferently, not minding it at all. Although there was a difference in status between the two of them, he was still a Cave Heavenly King. It was understandable for him to greet Torch Dragon King simply. There was no need for him to bow. When Monkey saw this, he was displeased. He chuckled and did not even bother to greet him. Since you were rude first, I don't care who you are. Long Ran was a dragon after all. He was worried that Su Zimo and Yi Zichen would offend Torch Dragon King because of this, so he hurriedly went forward to kneel and pay his respects. Long Li also stepped forward and said, Candle Dragon King, a dozen kings of the Tomb Realm led an army of millions and just attacked Beacon City. Fortunately, Brother Su and the others helped and Beacon City didn't fall. When Torch Dragon King heard that, his expression finally changed as he asked, that ordinary human king can defend against more than 10 kings of the Tomb Realm and defend Beacon City? It's absolutely true. Long Li said in a deep voice. When the incident happened, the Lord of Dragon Beacon City sent a message back immediately. However, Torch Dragon Planet doesn't seem to have received any news. At that point, Long Li looked at Torch Dragon King. That was actually a question. However, the Torch Dragon King was expressionless and silent. Long Li took a deep breath of air. Li suspects that someone on Torch Dragon Planet intercepted the news of the Lord of Dragon Beacon City and concealed the information. As he said that, Long Li looked at the Flame Dragon King who was guarding the entrance of the hall and grit his teeth. Torch Dragon King, Li suspects that this matter has something to do with you. I hope you can understand. Fufu, when the Flame Dragon King heard Long Li's accusation, he merely chuckled and did not panic at all. In fact, he did not even refute. When Su Zimo saw that, he narrowed his eyes. Initially, he thought that the Flame Dragon King revealed a flaw because he was careless previously. It was only at this moment that he was certain that the Flame Dragon King seemed to be fearless. What was he relying on? Su Zimo's heart sank when he thought of a possibility. However, he was expressionless and did not reveal anything unusual. Right then, the Torch Dragon King said slowly, Li, you suspected your own clansmen immediately after such a huge incident. Yet, you didn't suspect the 2 foreign races beside you? Stunned for a moment, Long Li said instinctively, Brother Su and the others are my friends. It's also thanks to Brother Su's help that we were able to protect Beacon City this time round. Why would I suspect them? Li, you're still too naive. The Torch Dragon King shook his head gently. The appearance of the 2 foreign races in Beacon City coincided with the Tomb Realm's sudden attack. Is that a coincidence? Those who aren't of our race definitely have ulterior motives. How many foreign races have betrayed us over the years? Li, you've already invited a wolf into your house and you don't even know it. Long Li looked at the Torch Dragon King in disbelief and argued, that's impossible. I witnessed the battle earlier on with my own eyes. There's no way Brother Su and the others have anything to do with the Tomb Realm. Torch Dragon King, are you suspecting me? Long Li was both angry and annoyed. He was a little anxious. The Torch Dragon King said indifferently, I'm not suspecting you. It's just that you're too young and inexperienced. It's easy for you to be bewitched by foreign races. Furthermore, what you see might not be true. Long Li was a dragon after all, and there were some things that she might not have thought of. Or rather, she might not have dared to think in that direction. However, as an outsider, Su Zimo was already suspecting the Torch Dragon King. If the Torch Dragon King did not know that the news was intercepted by the Flame Dragon King, his performance earlier on was way too calm. It was way too abnormal for him to be completely unconcerned about his clansmen when he heard that Beacon City was attacked and almost lost. If the Flame Dragon King was relying on the Torch Dragon King, then the Flame Dragon King's earlier performance would be easy to explain. Of course, even Su Zimo could not believe it and could not understand why the infamous Torch Dragon King, one of the 5 Dragon Kings of the 3,000 worlds, would betray the Dragon King. If even an outsider like him could have such a feeling, there was no way Long Li could have imagined it. That was way too bold of an idea. Long Li was still trying her best to argue. In fact, she was a little annoyed as she shouted, Torch Dragon King, not all foreign races have ulterior motives. If you don't believe me, recall the City Lord of Dragon Beacon City right now. He'll naturally explain to you. Monkey could not listen any longer and was fuming with anger. He scratched his ears and cheeks in discomfort. Suddenly, Su Zimo spoke loudly, since the Torch Dragon King doesn't believe me, we'll be asking for trouble if we stay here. Farewell. Thereafter, Su Zimo sent a voice transmission to Long Li with his spirit consciousness. Long Li, leave right now and return to the Hornless Dragon Star to look for your mother. Tell her everything that happened today, including everything that happened in the Torch Dragon Grand Hall. Su Zimo's tone was grim with a hint of urgency. Long Li could not help but feel his heart skip a beat when he heard the hidden meaning in his words. Right then, an indifferent voice drifted over from the Grand Hall. Who allowed you to leave? End of chapter. Chapter 3055. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes and glared at the Illumination Dragon King without saying anything. Monkey's eyes were bloodshot and his aura turned violent as well. Long Li and Long Ran's expressions changed when they heard that. Long Li asked in a deep voice, "Illumination Dragon King, what's the meaning of this?" Brother Su and the others came here with the intention of leaving with Long Ran. They had no intention of getting involved in this battle. Brother Su has just saved hundreds of thousands of clansmen in Beacon City. Are you going to keep him here just because he's from an alien race? Long Li's tone was interrogative. The Illumination Dragon King was still indifferent. There's no conclusion to the attack on Beacon City yet. Once I find out the truth, I'll naturally let them go. Long Ran went forward and bowed. Illumination Dragon King, I'm a dragon after all and can stay. However, what happened today has nothing to do with the two of them. Your Majesty, please allow them to leave. Fu, the Illumination Dragon King said coolly, do you think that the dragon world is a place where they can come and go as they please? The threat in this sentence was extremely heavy. Long Li and Long Ran's expressions changed. When Su Zimo heard that, he merely shook his head gently and said indifferently, if I want to leave, no one can stop me. You can try. The Illumination Dragon King's tone was cold. In just a few words, the two of them were already at daggers drawn. Su Zimo was unwilling to get involved in this fight between dragons and phoenixes. However, if anyone wanted to make an example out of him, they would have chosen the wrong person. There was definitely a huge problem among the dragons. Right now, Illumination Dragon Planet was no longer a good place and they had to leave as soon as possible. Brother Su, don't be rash. Long Li hurriedly sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness and reminded Su Zimo, this is Illumination Dragon Planet, not Beacon City. Once the Illumination Dragon King attacks, you won't even be able to leave this hall, let alone Illumination Dragon Planet. As one of the 5 Dragon Kings, the Illumination Dragon King's combat strength was naturally the top among the Dragon Kings. They were far more powerful than the 4 Peak Kings Su Zimo had faced in the Battle of Beacon City. In Long Li's opinion, the most important reason why Su Zimo had been able to display such terrifying battle prowess in the Battle of Beacon City was because his secret puppetry arts happened to be the bane of the Tomb Realm's battle corpses. Moreover, at that time the Dragon Beacon City Lord was there to hold them back. Now, facing a Peak King like the Torch Dragon King, even if Su Zimo used that puppet secret technique again, he had no chance of winning. Let's go. Su Zimo ignored the Illumination Dragon King's threat and called out before leading Monkey, Long Ran and the Long Li out of the hall. Monkey had witnessed Su Zimo's methods and did not hesitate. Before leaving, he even spat at the Illumination Dragon King with a look of disdain. Long Ran and Long Li's faces were pale. Although Long Ran knew that Wu Dao's true body was backing Su Zimo, he knew nothing about Wu Dao's true body's methods. In his opinion, Wu Dao's true body was far away in the vast wilderness and was beyond his reach. It was truly irrational for him to get into a conflict with the Illumination Dragon King now. Since you guys want to die so badly, I'll grant your wish. The Illumination Dragon King's eyes shone brightly as he suddenly attacked. Initially, he was dozens of feet away from Su Zimo. However, he raised his arm and in the blink of an eye, it transformed into a thick and powerful dragon arm covered in dragon scales that tore through the air. A gigantic and menacing dragon claw descended from the skies with a suffocating might. Even with Monkey's powerful bloodline, he was suppressed to the point of immobility by the Illumination Dragon King. The difference between the two of them was way too great, an entire major cultivation realm. No matter how strong Monkey's bloodline was, it could not make up for it. No! The Long Li exclaimed. Long Ran had a nervous expression. The Flame Dragon King, who was guarding the door, crossed his arms with a smile on his face as he watched this scene calmly. The Illumination Dragon King had no intention of holding back at all. The moment he attacked, he wanted to kill Su Zimo and Monkey on the spot. Sensing the killing intent behind him, Su Zimo, who had his back facing the Illumination Dragon King, had a cold glint in his eyes. Buzz! A sword hum sounded and a green sword beam flashed. Su Zimo did not turn around or even look. It was only when the gigantic dragon claw was about to descend that he summoned the Qingping sword and slashed in reverse. Clang! The sword seemed to have struck something extremely tough and the sound of metal clashing could be heard. The tremendous impact caused Su Zimo's body to shudder and his blood chi to surge. It was no wonder why the Illumination Dragon King was one of the 5 Dragon Kings. His reaction was way too fast. Sensing the sharp edge of the Qingping sword, the Illumination Dragon King's dragon claw changed direction immediately and met the blade of the Qingping sword with its sharp claws. Good sword. The Illumination Dragon King praised internally. If it was an ordinary Grotto Heaven numinous treasure, it would shatter and turn into scrap metal upon contact with his dragon claw. However, the sharpness of the sword was not damaged at all and its sword beam shone even brighter. All of a sudden, the Illumination Dragon King's expression changed. He suddenly felt a great sense of danger. Not good. The Illumination Dragon King's heart sank. His lifespan was draining rapidly. It was too fast. He had just realized that his lifespan had decreased by 100,000 years. He was already at his peak at his age to begin with. The loss of 100,000 years of lifespan had an extremely obvious change to him. His sideburns were already white, and even his head of red hair was rapidly losing its color and vitality. At the same time that Su Zimo slashed in reverse, he released a supreme divine power, Instant Splendor. The Instant Splendor was a dermic art that was fused with the morning bell and evening drum and could pose a huge threat to a king. Of course, that was under the premise that the king was caught off guard or did not release his Grotto Heaven. Boom. The Illumination Dragon King raised a Grotto Heaven right away. The Tao art of the Grotto Heaven descended on him and dispelled the power of instant divine power instantly. His lifespan stopped decreasing as well. As expected of the Illumination Dragon King. Even though Su Zimo was unprepared, he could not kill the other party. At that moment, Su Zimo had already turned around. His attack this time round had completely enraged the Illumination Dragon King. Die. The Illumination Dragon King's glabella shone and his spirit consciousness surged wildly. In his rage, he released an Essence Spirit secret skill and charged towards Su Zimo. He wanted to use the Essence Spirit of a Peak King to kill Su Zimo directly. The Illumination Dragon King's Essence Spirit condensed a dragon scale in midair that emitted a terrifying aura. A dragon had a reverse scale and anyone who touched it would die. Su Zimo had cultivated the same dragon scale secret skill and naturally knew how terrifying the dragon scale was. His Essence Spirit was comparable to the Illumination Dragon King. If he released the dragon scale secret skill as well, it would be difficult to determine a victor in this Essence Spirit fight and both sides might even be injured. With a thought, Su Zimo channeled his Essence Spirit and conjured a dermic seal. Brother Su, don't touch that dragon scale. When Long Li saw that, he reminded hurriedly. Su Zimo continued forming seals as though he did not hear anything. His dermic seal was mysterious and complicated, filled with Buddhist logic and Zen intent. At that moment, Su Zimo's aura changed as well. He lowered his head with a dignified expression, resembling a cross-legged Buddha. This was the first time Su Zimo released that Essence Spirit secret skill. The Perfection of Wisdom Nirvana Sutra was known as the #1 taboo secret manual for spirit refinement. Apart from a Cultivation Sutra, there were also 3 mysterious dermic seals. Su Zimo had already comprehended the first 2 dermic seals, impermanence of all actions and anatta of all dharmas. As for the final dermic seal, Su Zimo only comprehended it during his seclusion for more than 200 years on the path to heaven. That dermic seal was called Nirvana Silence. It was also the only Essence Spirit secret skill among the 3 dermic seals. Chapter 3056. Su Zimo controlled many Essence Spirit secret skills. However, at that moment, it was difficult for the other Essence Spirit secret skills to gain the upper hand against Illumination Dragon King's reverse scale. Only the Nirvana Silence could suppress Illumination Dragon King's reverse scale. The dermic seal could transcend the other party's Essence Spirit and return everything to silence. That included the life force bloodline. Everything would be destroyed. A golden dermic seal was released from Su Zimo's glabella silently. Everywhere it passed, everything returned to silence. In the blink of an eye, the dermic seal collided with the reverse scale. Humph! Illumination Dragon King sneered when he saw that. It was over. Anyone who touched the reverse scale of a dragon would die. Notwithstanding the huge difference in their cultivation realms, even if they were of the same cultivation realm, an Essence Spirit secret skill would be severely injured against his reverse scale even if they did not die. However, the smile on Illumination Dragon King's face vanished before long and was replaced by a look of shock. How could this be? The collision of the 2 Essence Spirit secret skills did not make a sound. However, it was extremely dangerous and the surrounding void was shattered into pieces. After a brief pause, the light of the reverse scale dimmed gradually. Cracks appeared on the reverse scale one after another. The golden dermic seal swayed continuously and its golden light dimmed, but it was still intact. Right then, Illumination Dragon King felt a tremendous impact on his essence spirit. It was almost jolted out of his body. Against such an impact, the grotto heaven that Illumination Dragon King had just condensed showed signs of collapse. Right then, Suzimo's figure flashed and he had already closed in. Illumination Dragon King's essence spirit was way too strong. Even though Nirvana Silence had the upper hand, it could not kill him. Even so, Illumination Dragon King still revealed a huge opening and was stunned by the impact of the Nirvana Silence dermic seal. His perfected grotto heaven was almost destroyed. Suzimo closed in and the Qingping sword flashed, stabbing towards Illumination Dragon King's glabella. A single slash was enough to kill Illumination Dragon King on the spot. However, when the Qingping sword beam pierced through Torch Dragon King's glabella, Suzimo's heart stirred. He changed his mind at the last minute and retracted the Qingping sword. Immediately after, he strode forward and extended his palm the moment the Illumination Dragon King's grotto heaven collapsed and revealed an opening, landing it on the top of the Illumination Dragon King's head to restrain his essence spirit. On the one hand, Torch Dragon King had a high position among the dragons. He had a special status and controlled the entire Torch Dragon domain. His betrayal had a great impact on the dragons. There must be an extremely important secret hidden in his memories. On the other hand, Suzimo also wanted to see why, as the Torch Dragon King, he had come this far and betrayed the dragons. Of course, the success rate of using the soul-searching technique on such a peak king was extremely low. To the side, Long Li and Long Ran were dumbfounded. Their brains couldn't keep up for a while. In a flash, Illumination Dragon King was captured alive by Suzimo and his essence spirit was imprisoned. "Outsider, what are you trying to do?" Torch Dragon King's essence spirit was imprisoned in Suzimo's palm as he shouted fiercely. "Soul search." Suzimo did not say anything more to Torch Dragon King and was about to use the soul-searching technique. All of a sudden, Suzimo sensed something amiss and focused his gaze. Another powerful and evil power burst forth from within Torch Dragon King's essence spirit. A dark green glow shone on Torch Dragon King's essence spirit. Is this a curse? When Suzimo saw that, his heart skipped a beat and he immediately thought of something else. A similar situation happened to the essence spirits of the two horse monkey emperor lords who died in the hands of Wu Dao's true body. Long Li noticed that as well and frowned, murmuring softly, "Torch Dragon King is cursed? When did this happen?" After the power of the curse appeared, before Suzimo could begin his soul search, Torch Dragon King's essence spirit exploded and died on the spot. The Torch Dragon King, one of the 5 great dragon kings, had died just like that without knowing why. Suzimo's expression darkened in deep thought. Although he could not obtain any memories from Torch Dragon King, the appearance of the power of the curse earlier on could confirm some things. Torch Dragon King's betrayal might not have been his intention. It was very likely that he was coerced by the curse. To prevent his soul from being searched, the curse detonated Torch Dragon King's essence spirit. "That's not right." Long Li shook his head repeatedly with a puzzled expression and murmured, "Even if Torch Dragon King is cursed, he shouldn't have betrayed dragons. Not to mention him, even ordinary dragons would not do anything to harm dragons if they were threatened, even if they died. Furthermore, Torch Dragon King has a firm Dao heart. Torch Dragon King has contributed countless dragons in the past. How can he submit to a curse?" Suzimo said in a deep voice, "No matter what, Torch Dragon King's betrayal must be related to the witch race. Such an evil and powerful curse could only be released by someone from the witch race. Furthermore, even his grade 12 Qinglian true body was wary of that curse and was extremely resistant." Suzimo continued, "In that case, the reason why the Tomb Realm army suddenly descended on Beacon City should be because Torch Dragon King is helping them. Torch Dragon King was in charge of the Torch Dragon region and was familiar with everything here. It wouldn't be difficult for him to let the Tomb Realm army in." Long Li nodded. The reason why the dozens of kings of the Tomb Realm were fearless and dared to attack Beacon City was because they knew that Torch Dragon Planet would not provide any reinforcements. Thankfully, Brother Su was around. Otherwise, Beacon City would have been conquered. Suzimo thought for a moment. The problem now is whether there are other Dragon Kings or dragons on Torch Dragon Planet apart from Torch Dragon King who are cursed and have already betrayed us. "There's a high chance that Flame Dragon King has already betrayed us," Long Ran said. "Where's the Flame Dragon King?" Monkey suddenly asked with a frown. Their attention was focused on Torch Dragon King earlier on. Unknowingly, the Flame Dragon King had already left this place. "Not good." Long Li seemed to have thought of something and exclaimed softly. Immediately after, dragon roars sounded outside the Torch Dragon Grand Hall, filled with rage and killing intent. One after another, the terrifying auras of Dragon Kings burst forth from Torch Dragon Planet. In the blink of an eye, they descended around the Torch Dragon Grand Hall and surrounded the place impenetrably. Dozens of Dragon Kings entered the hall with murderous auras. The Flame Dragon King was among them and was looking at Su Zimo and the others mockingly. Instantly, Su Zimo understood as well. When the Flame Dragon King saw that Torch Dragon King was dead, he did not head forward to take revenge. Instead, he left immediately and spread the news. The death of Torch Dragon King in the hands of a foreign race was enough to incite the wrath of all the Dragon Kings. The Flame Dragon King did not have to attack and could borrow the strength of the other Dragon Kings on Torch Dragon Planet to kill Su Zimo. Furthermore, it was difficult for Su Zimo to explain this matter clearly. Torch Dragon King was already dead. However, there was still a wisp of aura of Torch Dragon King's essence spirit in his palm that the dozens of Dragon Kings could sense clearly. The Dragon Kings were murderous and looked at Su Zimo as though they could tear him into pieces. Dragon Kings, please calm down. There's a misunderstanding. When Long Li saw that, he hurried forward and stood in front of Su Zimo, saying loudly, Long Li, you lured a wolf into the house and killed Torch Dragon King. Now you're protecting this human. How should you be punished? Before Long Li could continue, the Flame Dragon King shouted and interrupted him. Chapter 3057. Nonsense. Long Li berated, the Illumination Dragon King was the one who was cursed and betrayed the dragons. He was discovered by us and wanted to silence us, resulting in his death. Fufu. The Flame Dragon King sneered, Long Li, you're truly deranged to say something like that. As one of the 5 Dragon Kings, the Illumination Dragon King was the oldest and the most loyal subordinate of the dragons. He had made countless contributions. How could he betray the dragons? Even if he was cursed and threatened, the Illumination Dragon King would never compromise. Even if he had to commit suicide, he wouldn't harm the dragons at all. When the dozens of Dragon Kings heard Long Li's accusation, they sneered in disbelief as well. The Illumination Dragon King would betray the dragons? If the Illumination Dragon King betrayed them, the Illumination Dragon region would cease to exist as well. Long Li, to think that you would do something as such and collude with outsiders to kill the Illumination Dragon King. Long Li, tell us if this has anything to do with the Illumination Dragon King. If she didn't have the backing of the Illumination Dragon King, would a true spirit like her have the guts to do so? In a few words, the few Dragon Kings pointed their spears at the Illumination Dragon King right away. Long Li was young after all. Against the suppressive slander of dozens of Dragon Kings, her mind was in a mess and she was so anxious that she was about to cry. Why, you're maligning me? This has nothing to do with Brother Su or my mother. Long Li's explanation was truly feeble. Her voice trembled slightly and she sounded like she was about to cry. Su Zimo frowned slightly. Ever since the dozens of Dragon Kings entered, he had not said or explained anything. He did not want to get involved in this war of dragons and phoenixes to begin with. Now that he was forced into it, he could not be bothered to explain. He could come and go as he pleased on the Illumination Dragon Planet. After releasing the Tai Yin Yang escape art, the dozens of Dragon Kings around him could not stop him at all. However, when he saw Long Li standing in front of her and trying his best to defend her while facing the pressure and accusations of dozens of Dragon Kings with reddened eyes, Su Zimo could not help but feel a tinge of pity in his heart. Among the dozens of Dragon Kings, a few of them looked at Long Li's tightly pursed lips. His eyes were brimming with tears as big as beans. His pitiful appearance made them hesitate. Long Li's background was pitiful. He lost his father when he was young. Among the dozens of Dragon Kings, many of them had watched Long Li grow up and were unwilling to believe that Long Li would betray the dragons and murder Torch Dragon King. This human is only an ordinary king. How did he injure Torch Dragon King? A Peak Dragon King frowned. Another Dragon King also muttered to himself irresolutely, why don't we postpone this matter for a while? Since this person can't escape anyway, let's inform the Dragon Island first. The Dragon Island was the center of the Dragon world, surrounded by the 5 great dragon regions. Only the Dragon Kings and Dragon Emperors had the qualifications to ascend the Dragon Island. Seeing that the situation had changed, the Flame Dragon King said hurriedly, because of Long Li, Torch Dragon King was caught off guard and was ambushed by this human king. That's not it. Long Li shouted, Torch Dragon King was the one who attacked Brother Su first with a killing move. Brother Su had no choice but to retaliate. Furthermore, Brother Su wasn't the one who killed Torch Dragon King. He merely imprisoned Torch Dragon King's essence spirit and wanted to search his soul. In the end, he triggered the power of the curse and caused Torch Dragon King's essence spirit to self-destruct. Foo, the Flame Dragon King sneered, what a sharp-tongued lass. Torch Dragon King is already dead and can't prove his innocence. You can say whatever you want. Torch Dragon King is dead, but there's still someone alive. Right then, Su Zimo, who had been silent the entire time in the hall, suddenly said faintly. That sentence was said without rhyme or reason, and the Dragon Kings did not understand what it meant. All of a sudden, right in front of everyone, Su Zimo flashed and arrived before the Flame Dragon King instantly. Reaching out, he grabbed the top of the Flame Dragon King's head. Insolent! How dare you! A series of furious roars sounded from the hall. This time round, the dozens of Dragon Kings were truly enraged. None of them would have thought that this human would want to hurt someone right under their noses. Since ancient times, when had there been an outsider race that was so arrogant in the territory of the dragons? The dozens of Dragon Kings attacked one after another, wanting to suppress Su Zimo on the spot. Even Long Ran, who was at the side, was shocked. Right now he was in a dilemma. Firstly, he did not want Su Zimo to be wronged. However, in his heart he did not want Su Zimo to become enemies with the dragons either. Right then, Su Zimo suddenly opened his mouth and let out a dragon roar. This dragon roar secret skill was based on the Azure Dragon's roar and fused with many sound domain secret skills. There was even a terrifying and majestic sound of thunder mixed within. Among the dozens of Dragon Kings, some reacted extremely quickly and released their dragon roar secret skills to fight against it immediately. Some of the Dragon Kings were confident in their strong physiques and powerful bloodlines. Fearlessly, they endured the sound domain secret skill and charged towards Su Zimo. Under normal circumstances, with the physique and bloodline of the dragons, it was not a big deal to withstand a sound domain secret skill of an expert of the same level. Furthermore, in their eyes, Su Zimo was only an ordinary king of the human race. His cultivation realm was much lower than theirs, let alone his physique and bloodline. However, in the next moment, the expressions of the Dragon Kings who chose to take it head-on changed drastically. The dozens of peerless Dragon Kings grunted and felt their blood boil in their chests. Their eyes were bloodshot, their ears were buzzing and their vision turned black. Even the few peak-stage Dragon Kings paused slightly. The remaining Dragon Kings who resisted with their sound domain secret skills also paused slightly. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo and the Flame Dragon King had already exchanged blows. The dozens of Dragon Kings did not expect that Su Zimo would dare to attack him under the watchful eyes of the dragons. By the time he reacted, Su Zimo was already close to him. He stretched out his arm and his palm hovered above his head. The Flame Dragon King did not have time to think. He circulated his bloodline and supported a grotto heaven at the same time. However, in the next moment, Su Zimo's Dragon Roar secret skill exploded. The distance between the two was too close. The Flame Dragon King shuddered. His grotto heaven could not be formed and his blood chi was almost scattered. At the critical moment, he could only raise his arms high above his head to block Su Zimo's palm. As long as he could delay for a moment, the dozens of Dragon Kings around could attack and kill Su Zimo to save him. However, the moment the Flame Dragon King's arms touched Su Zimo's palm, a look of fear appeared in his eyes. A torrential force burst forth from that seemingly fair and tender palm. There was no way to defend against it. Right in front of everyone, the Flame Dragon King had just raised his arms high above his head when he was pushed back by Su Zimo single-handedly. Piak! Su Zimo's palm landed on the Flame Dragon King's head and exerted strength, pulling his essence spirit out instantly. The battle happened quickly and ended even faster. By the time the dozens of Dragon Kings broke free from the tremors of the Dragon Roar secret skill, the Flame Dragon King's essence spirit had already landed in Su Zimo's palm. The dust settled. End of chapter. Chapter 3058. How dare you? The dozens of Dragon Kings were livid. This human had actually captured the Flame Dragon King right in front of them, and even imprisoned his primordial spirit. This was simply lawless. He did not put them in the dragons in his eyes at all. Unforgivable. The few Dragon Kings who had some sympathy for Long Li and even trusted her a little earlier also looked at Long Li coldly. There was no need to say anything about the current situation. This human king's actions were clearly to silence them. Long Li was also shocked by Su Zimo's actions. She was dumbfounded at the scene. By the time she understood what was happening, Su Zimo had already captured the Flame Dragon King's essence spirit. Human, don't think about leaving alive after being so presumptuous and killing people in our dragon world. A Peak Dragon King said slowly with a cold expression. Let the Flame Dragon King go and we can leave your corpse intact. Another Peak Dragon King said. Ha! Suzimo smiled and slowly raised his palm. He grabbed the Flame Dragon King's eyes and placed it in front of the dozens of Dragon Kings. Black chains appeared in his palm and wrapped around the Fire Dragon King's primordial spirit. Poof! In the next moment, the Flame Dragon King's essence spirit exploded and died. Human, hand over your life. Originally, the Flame Dragon King was in Suzimo's hands. The Dragon Kings wanted to protect his life and did not dare to attack directly. However, this scene completely enraged the dragons. What was this? In the territory of the Dragon Clan in front of their eyes, he killed a Dragon King. This was a provocation. The dozens of Dragon Kings could not hold back and even faintly transformed into their true forms, wanting to swarm forward and tear Suzimo into pieces. Wait. At this moment, the two Peak Dragon Kings in the lead suddenly shouted and released an even stronger divine consciousness pressure, suppressing the dozens of Dragon Kings. Spirit Dragon King, Radiant Dragon King, what are you doing? The Dragon Kings asked loudly, their faces filled with grief and indignation. Spirit Dragon King didn't explain. He just narrowed his eyes and stared at Suzimo's palm, his expression solemn. The other Dragon Kings tried their best to suppress the anger and killing intent in their hearts as they also looked at Suzimo's palm. In that human's palm, other than the Flame Dragon King's dead primordial spirit, there was still an extremely evil power. The dragons recalled that when the Flame Dragon King's primordial spirit exploded, there seemed to have been a flash of green light. Could it be? Spirit Dragon King looked at Suzimo and asked hesitantly, was that a curse? Suzimo nodded and said, yes, the dragons can still be saved. Suzimo originally planned to leave, but when he saw that Longli was wronged, he couldn't bear it. From the beginning to the end he did not explain. On one hand it was disdain. On the other hand it was hard to explain. The Illumination Dragon King was dead and there was no proof. However, he thought of this idea when he thought of the abnormalities of the Flame Dragon King. The Illumination Dragon King was dead but the Flame Dragon King was still alive. As long as he captured the Flame Dragon King and did the same, the curse hidden in the Flame Dragon King's primordial spirit would appear as well. That was the most direct and simple method. Of course, this action could lead to another outcome. Suzimo did not know who among the Dragon Kings before him was cursed and how many of them were cursed. If the Dragon Kings were also cursed, they would choose to ignore the curse on the Flame Dragon King's primordial spirit even if they saw it. However, his action would lead to a huge battle between him and the dragons. That was the reason why Suzimo said that the dragons could still be saved when he saw that the two Peak Dragon Kings, the Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King, had sensed the curse and stopped the dragons. The expressions of the Spirit Dragon King, the Radiant Dragon King and the other Dragon Kings turned terrible. Normally, they would have been able to recognize that it was the power of the curse immediately. However, when they saw that, they could not believe it and could not accept it. The Flame Dragon King was cursed? Could the Illumination Dragon King be in the same situation? When did this happen? What did this have to do with the witch race? Countless doubts surged into the minds of the Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King. Even with their experience and knowledge, they could not figure it out. Suddenly, a Dragon King said, even if the Illumination Dragon King and the Flame Dragon King are cursed, it can't prove that they betrayed the dragons. That's right. Another Dragon King said in a deep voice, even if they are cursed and betrayed the dragons, it's not up to you, an outsider, to kill them. I think this outsider has ulterior motives and is up to no good. He wants to sow discord between the dragons and make us suspect each other. Another Dragon King said coldly. Suzimo smiled at them when he heard that. When the Dragon Kings who spoke saw that smile, they felt a chill in their hearts. Just now, this human smiled like that and the Flame Dragon King's essence spirit exploded. Compared to the Dragon Kings, the Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King were much less hostile towards Suzimo. This matter was too complicated and it was very likely that the witch race was involved. They would probably have to wait for the Dragon Emperors on Dragon Island to make a decision. The witch race. The witch race was not involved in the war between the dragons and phoenixes. Why would they see the curse of the witch race on their clansmen? The Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King could not help but recall. At some point in time, the Illumination Dragon King's every move seemed to have changed. Longli said, we discovered the abnormality because Beacon City was suddenly attacked by the Tomb Realm army. The Dragon Beacon City Lord sent a message back, but no one went to provide support. The Dragon King's expressions changed when they heard that. The Spirit Dragon King asked hurriedly, Beacon City was lost? What about Longfeng? How are the hundreds of thousands of clansmen in the city? How many escaped? Long Li said, more than 10 kings came from the Tomb Realm, including 4 Peak Kings. They led an army of 10 million. Beacon City was originally unable to defend. But because Brother Su took action, we were able to kill all the kings. The Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King took a deep look at Su Zimo. This human's cultivation realm was not high, but he was decisive and knew some close combat techniques. If he was the slightest bit careless and caught off guard, it was indeed possible for him to succeed. However, they did not believe that an ordinary human king could fight a Peak King head-on. Long Li continued, without receiving support from Planet Illumination Dragon, Brother Su and I were entrusted by the Dragon Beacon City Lord to come to Planet Illumination Dragon to take a look. Later on we encountered the scene just now. Long Li gave a rough account of the entire process. The Spirit Dragon King, the Radiant Dragon King, and the other Dragon Kings all had solemn expressions. These pieces of news had a huge impact on them. The Illumination Dragon King was cursed and betrayed the dragons? End of chapter. Chapter 3059. Let's go. Su Zimo called out to Long Ran, Monkey and Long Li, preparing to leave the Illumination Dragon planet. The situation on the dragon's side was complicated. When he realized that the Illumination Dragon King was cursed and had betrayed the dragons, he thought even further. In the war between dragons and phoenixes, many worlds joined forces in the Wudong world. A super world like the Blood World, as well as high-level worlds such as the Tomb Realm, Poison World and Bone World did not have a witch world. It was only until the death of the Illumination Dragon King today that the tip of the iceberg of the witch world was revealed. What role did the witch world play in the war between dragons and phoenixes? The city lord of Dragon Wind City once said that the Tomb Realm army's sudden attack on Beacon City was merely a test. Now, it seemed like things were not that simple. With the Illumination Dragon King working from the inside, could the Tomb Realm only send more than 10 kings to test Beacon City? This was not a place to stay for long. If they did not leave, they would most likely fall deep into it. Hold on. When the few Dragon Kings saw that Su Zimo wanted to leave, they stood out right away and stopped him with unfriendly expressions. A Dragon King said in a deep voice, "This matter hasn't been concluded yet. Even if the Illumination Dragon King is cursed, he died because of you. None of you can leave before we investigate thoroughly." Su Zimo's expression turned cold. He was already very patient on account of Long Li and the Hornless Dragon King. However, there were still some Dragon Kings who did not know what was good for them and kept pestering him. Of course, it was hard to say how much of this was out of his own will, and how much of it was because he was cursed and manipulated by the shamans behind the scenes. Su Zimo's gaze was cold as he looked at the few Dragon Kings in front of him and said slowly, "You guys had better not provoke me. If I want to leave, no one here can stop me." The few Dragon Kings were enraged. Su Zimo's tone made them extremely uncomfortable. Which other race would dare to speak to them in such a manner? Furthermore, it was a human. Furthermore, this was the territory of the dragons. Even if this human king had some combat strength, could he defend against dozens of Dragon Kings working together? Do you not understand the situation? This is the Illumination Dragon planet, the Dragon World. A Dragon King berated, "This is not a place for you to act recklessly and behave atrociously." Enough. Spirit Dragon King roared. Just now he was thinking about what this explosive news might mean. Before he could sort it out, this side had become hostile. He couldn't help but feel irritated. The Spirit Dragon King looked at Su Zimo and cupped his hands slightly. He pondered and said, "Fellow Taoist, if you have nothing to do, why don't you rest for a few days on Torch Dragon Planet? We can also play host to you." Spirit Dragon King's tone softened a lot, and his words were quite tactful. However, what he implied was that he still wanted Su Zimo to stay on Torch Dragon Planet. "Not interested," Su Zimo said faintly, rejecting him flatly. With that, he tore open the void and prepared to leave with Long Li, Long Ran and the monkey. A few Dragon Kings were furious and were about to step forward to stop him. The Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King exchanged glances and shook their heads slightly. However, they still stepped in and stopped the few Dragon Kings. Before leaving, Su Zimo paused and looked at the Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King. "If Torch Dragon King betrays the dragons and leads the army of the Tomb Realm into our territory, it won't be a simple attack on Beacon City. If I were you guys, I would contact the Dragon Kings of the 10 Dragon Cities right now. The Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King were still normal after all. Suzimo reminded them. The Spirit Dragon King's heart sank. The matter of Torch Dragon King had too great of an impact on his heart and he could not understand the situation for a moment. It was only when Suzimo reminded him that he realized the danger. In reality, the situation that Suzimo foresaw was even more serious than they had imagined. In fact, he had already prepared for the worst. Once the 10 dragon cities were breached, it would be difficult to defend Torch Dragon Planet. This meant that the coiling dragon formation would shatter. At that time, the armies of the Wudong world and many other worlds would invade en masse and start a war. There was a chance that all 5 dragon regions would be lost. At that time, Dragon Island would be the only one left to face the armies of the many worlds. This battle could very well determine the survival of the dragon race. This kind of situation was not something he could control. At the very least, he could not control Qinglian's true body. Right now, Suzimo was in a hurry to leave. On one hand, it was to avoid being embroiled in the vortex of this war. On the other hand, he wanted to send Long Li back to the Qi Dragon region. He was worried that the Qi Dragon region would encounter a similar crisis as well. There's no response from those dragon cities. The Radiant Dragon King had just sent a message back, but it was like a stone sinking into the ocean. There was no reply. The Spirit Dragon King had a grim expression as he said in a deep voice, "Let's wait a little longer." Right now, everything outside was unknown and they did not dare to leave Torch Dragon Planet rashly. Long Li was worried as well. Brother Su, something might have happened to my mother as well." Long Li's voice trembled slightly. "When Torch Dragon King died earlier on, I realized that something was amiss and sent a message to my mother. However, after so long she hasn't replied." Suzimo sighed internally. The situation was developing in the direction he had guessed. Something had happened to the Qi Dragon region as well. Right now he could only hope that the worst would not happen. "Let's head to the Qi Dragon region right now," Suzimo said in a deep voice. "Not good." Right then, the sound of clothes fluttering could be heard from outside the hall. It was extremely chaotic. A true dragon rushed in with a panicked expression without reporting and shouted, "Enemy attack! Enemy attack!" The expressions of the dozens of dragon kings changed. "Don't panic. How many people are here?" The Spirit Dragon King took a deep breath and asked in a deep voice. It was unknown what the true dragon saw, but his eyes were filled with fear as he replied with a trembling voice, I don't know. There are too many of them." The dozens of dragon kings' hearts skipped a beat when they heard that and they rushed out of the hall hurriedly. Immediately after, they witnessed an incomparably shocking scene. A series of gigantic rifts appeared in the starry skies around Torch Dragon Planet as many figures with powerful auras walked out one after another. Every single one of them was a Grotto Heaven King. Among them, most of them were Tomb Realm Kings. At a glance, there were more than 3,000 of them. The remaining Grotto Heaven Kings came from various worlds of different sizes. In total, there were more than 1,000 of them. More than 5,000 Grotto Heaven Kings descended around Torch Dragon Planet and emitted endless might. Pust. When the dozens of Dragon Kings saw that, they could not help but gasp and feel chills run down their spines. Even though they were part of the Dragon Clan, they still felt a trace of fear in their hearts when they saw such a terrifying display of power. There were more than 5,000 Grotto Heaven Kings, but there were less than 50 Dragon Kings on Torch Dragon Planet. The hundreds of Peak Stage Kings in the lead had already begun setting up techniques to seal the surrounding void. With the void sealed, none of the living beings on Torch Dragon Planet could escape. Behind the Grotto Heaven Kings, gigantic spirit vessels sailed out of the spatial rifts one after another. Every single spirit vessel was filled with people. There were millions and tens of millions of them. At the very least, there were hundreds of millions of troops. They were endless and engulfed Torch Dragon Planet like black clouds that blotted out the skies. An army was pressing in. Chapter 3060. Many dragons looked up at this scene, their faces pale and shocked. The dragons could not imagine how such a huge army could break through the dragon array and descend around Torch Dragon Planet. "Activate the array, quick, quick." Torch Dragon King was dead, and the dragons on Torch Dragon Planet were leaderless. Spirit Dragon King was the first to react. He suppressed the shock in his heart and roared. "Mystic Dragon King, Mist Dragon King, you guys guard the array core in the northeast. Flying Dragon King, Supreme Dragon King, you guys guard the array core in the southwest." Spirit Dragon King made a prompt decision and ordered the Dragon Kings to rush to the array cores on Torch Dragon Planet. Torch Dragon Planet had an astral guardian array. In such a situation, dozens of dragon kings rushing out was no different from sending themselves to their deaths. The difference in strength between the two sides was too great. They could only rely on this astral guardian array to defend and wait for reinforcements from the other dragon regions and dragon islands to have a chance of survival. Spirit Dragon King's reaction was already the best response. In the main hall, Su Zimo frowned slightly. The surrounding void had been sealed. Although the Tai Yin Yang escape art could use the power of Yin and Yang to condense a spatial tunnel in shattered space, it could not break through the sealed void. In other words, the four of them were also trapped on Torch Dragon Planet. They were still a step too late. Of course, even if they could not leave for the time being, Su Zimo was relatively calm. He looked at the dense army outside and pondered. The Tomb Realm was only a high-level world, but there were more than 3,000 Grotto Heaven kings? One had to know that some superworlds only had 2,000 to 3,000 kings. The Sword World was like that. Of course, some superworlds had even more kings. For example, in the Heaven World, just the kings of the 9 Firmament Immortal Realm alone were estimated to number 3,000. And the Stone World and Blood World had more than 10,000 kings. The Dragon World had the fewest kings, only a few hundred in total. In any case, the Tomb Realm was only a high-level world, and so many Grotto Heaven kings had appeared. This surprised Su Zimo. But soon he thought of a possibility. When Su Zimo and the monkey arrived outside the Dragon World, there was a boundless sea of blood in the starry sky, but there was not a single corpse. Now that he thought about it, these corpses must have been collected by the cultivators of the Tomb Realm. In the battle between the dragons and the phoenixes, the more powerful the Tomb Realm was, the more powerful it would be. In other words, the Tomb Realm had benefited the most from the battle between the dragons and the phoenixes. Dragons do not panic. Spirit Dragon King said loudly, as long as we work together and use the formation to protect Torch Dragon Planet, the experts of the other 4 dragon realms will come to our aid. The dragons, who were initially panicking, felt slightly relieved upon hearing this. Ah! But soon, a loud laugh came from outside Torch Dragon Planet. The leading peak king of the Tomb Realm said loudly, Spirit Dragon King, you are too naive. The other 4 dragon regions can't even protect themselves, so how can they care about you? The Corpse God King said slowly, this time the Torch Dragon Domain will be led by the Tomb Realm, the Chi Dragon Domain will be led by the Blood Domain, the Chio Dragon Domain will be led by the Poison Domain, the Ing Dragon Domain will be led by the Bone Domain, and the Azure Dragon Domain will be led by the Wudong Domain. Each of them has gathered thousands or even tens of thousands of Grotto Heavenly Kings. On Torch Dragon Planet, the dragons were in an uproar. The hearts of Spirit Dragon King and Radiant Dragon King sank and their expressions turned extremely ugly. The 5 dragon regions were about to fall? Or was this Corpse God King bluffing? Su Zimo sighed softly when he heard that. Earlier on, he was wondering why the Grotto Heavenly Kings that descended around Torch Dragon Planet were mainly experts from the Tomb Realm. There were no Grotto Heavenly Kings from the Wudong Domain, Blood Domain and other realms. From the looks of it, the 5 dragon regions were in danger. Everyone listen to me. The Radiant Dragon King clenched his fists and tried his best to remain calm. He said loudly, even if the 5 dragon regions fall, Dragon Island will be our last retreat. As long as we defend Torch Dragon Planet, the Dragon Emperors on Dragon Island will definitely rush over to support us. Long Li's face turned pale when she saw that. At that moment, she nodded instinctively when she heard the Radiant Dragon King's words. That's right. More than 5,000 Grotto Heavenly Kings emitted such powerful energy fluctuations. The Imperial Lords of Dragon Island must have sensed it. It's hard to say. Su Zimo shook his head gently. The army of the Wudong Domain had created such a huge formation to attack the 5 dragon regions at the same time. They would definitely have backup plans to restrict the Dragon Emperors on Dragon Island. Ah! The Corpse God King laughed loudly once more and declared, Radiant Dragon King, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you guys. The Dragon Emperors on Dragon Island can't even take care of themselves and won't be able to save you guys. What? The dragons were shocked when they heard that. Could it be? Right then, an extremely intense energy fluctuation came from the direction of Dragon Island, causing the starry skies within billions of miles to tremble. Even the dragons on Torch Dragon Planet could sense it clearly. Fufu. Another Peak Corpse King laughed and said, the battle of the emperors over there has already begun. The dragons on Torch Dragon Planet can only pray for the best. The dragons were filled with fear and despair. It could be said that Dragon Island was their last hope. If the Imperial Lords on Dragon Island could not provide support, how long could they defend with the dozens of Dragon Kings on this planet in such a formation? Dozens of breaths? Half an incense stick's time? Su Zimo was silent. The worst-case scenario had still happened. The sudden attack of the Tomb Realm army on Beacon City was not a test at all. It was part of the final battle between the dragons and phoenixes. Under normal circumstances, the Tomb Realm army could have successfully taken down Beacon City and marched straight in to meet up with the surrounding experts of the Tomb Realm. However, Beacon City was saved because of Su Zimo's intervention. Even so, the other 9 dragon cities could not defend against such a formation. Su Zimo even suspected that Beacon City might have fallen after they left. Oh, right. The Corpse God King seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said, "The army's attack this time was originally going smoothly. However, something happened at Beacon City. I heard that a human king intervened and killed more than 10 of our kings. However, it doesn't matter." The Corpse God King smiled faintly and continued, "I've already personally bathed Beacon City in blood and killed everyone inside. That Long Feng is quite stubborn. He would rather die than submit. He even destroyed his own dragon body than be refined by me." Tisk tisk. The Corpse God King pursed his lips slightly. What a pity. I could only chop off his head and give it to everyone as a greeting gift. Before he finished speaking, the Corpse God King took out a bloody dragon head from his storage bag and tossed it casually towards Torch Dragon Planet. The dragon head rolled in midair with a hint of warmth in its blood. Judging from its slightly menacing facial features, it was the city lord of Dragon Feng City. When Long Ran saw that, he was furious and could not control himself. Chapter 3061. Looking at Long Feng's head, the dragons mourned and an aura of despair spread rapidly on the Illumination Dragon Planet. There was even a hint of fear on some of the dragons' faces. Once the hearts of the people crumbled, no matter how strong the formation on the Illumination Dragon Planet was, it was useless. Even the 2 Peak Kings, the Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King, did not have the fighting spirit they had just now. Su Zimo shook his head gently. The dragons were facing internal and external troubles. They might be wiped out. Right from the beginning, Su Zimo did not want to get involved in the war between dragons and phoenixes, much less alert Wu Dao's true body. On one hand, the war between dragons and phoenixes was caused by the dragons conquering everywhere and causing the destruction of their race. The dragons could only blame themselves for the current situation. On the other hand, Dai was injured after the battle in the Great Wilderness. Wu Dao's true body guarded her at all times and cultivated in seclusion. While breaking through to the world realm in the Essence Martial Grotto Heaven, he could protect Dai and would not leave casually. Of course, some of the things that happened on the Illumination Dragon Planet gave Su Zimo new speculations about the war between dragons and phoenixes. There was a high chance that the witch race was behind the war between dragons and phoenixes and was fanning the flames. The witch race might be the reason why the dragon world ended up in its current state. Of course, those were only his speculations and were not enough for Wu Dao's true body to come out of seclusion. Spirit Dragon King, Radiant Dragon King. The Corpse God King raised his voice once more. I think your dragon bodies are not bad. If you guys give up and surrender, I can promise to leave your corpses intact. From the tone of the Corpse God King, leaving the Spirit Dragon King and Radiant Dragon King with an intact corpse was already a great favor. The Corpse God King smiled again. Furthermore, you guys will be reborn and exist in another form in this world. The cultivators of the Tomb Realm burst into laughter when they heard that. The so-called rebirth was merely the battle corpses refined by the Corpse God King into battle corpses. The Spirit Dragon King and Radiant Dragon King's faces darkened and they remained silent. When had the dragons ever been bullied as such? Up till this point of their cultivation, had they ever been humiliated as such? Even if they surrendered, they would only be left with an intact corpse. Spirit Dragon King, I think we should. A Dragon King stood out and said hesitantly, seeming to be in a difficult position. My fellow clansmen. Spirit Dragon King didn't wait for him to finish. He looked around and said in a deep voice, I don't know the situation on Dragon Island, but I believe that the Dragon Emperors will not give up. They will fight to the death. The dragons have reached a critical juncture of life and death. If we take a step back, we will be facing the extinction of our race. Everyone, please remember that we are the dragon race. The dragons would rather die in battle than submit. Spirit Dragon King's impassioned voice spread to every corner of Torch Dragon Planet, reverberating between heaven and earth. Gradually, it awakened the fighting spirit of some dragons. I would rather die in battle than submit. With the Radiant Dragon King's loud response, the dragons also gradually let out one high-pitched dragon roar after another, creating a massive sound wave. However, such an aura was still far too inferior when compared to the 5,000 Grotto Heaven Kings outside. Why bother? The Corpse God King looked at the dragons on the Torch Dragon Star who were still trying to put up a fight. He shook his head with a mocking expression and said, "In the face of absolute strength, fighting spirit and guts are not worth mentioning. Just crush them directly. Everyone break this formation for me." The Corpse God King pointed forward and said coldly, "After breaking the formation, wash Torch Dragon Planet with blood. Leave no one alive." Boom. At his command, the 5,000 Grotto Heaven Kings attacked at the same time. Thousands of divine weapons turned into streaks of divine light and rained down like rain. At the same time, Torch Dragon Planet's formation was activated, forming a crimson barrier around the planet. Many runes appeared on it, burning with flames. Boom, 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 boom. Numerous divine weapons descended and slammed into the formation, creating a series of deafening explosions. The formation began to shake and the runes on it flickered, showing signs of collapsing at any time. The 5,000-odd Grotto Heaven Kings had yet to attack with their full strength. They merely summoned their respective Grotto Heaven numinous treasures and the Astral Protection Formation was already on the verge of collapse. When they saw that, the Corpse God King and the others reared their heads in laughter. On Torch Dragon Planet, the hearts of the dragons turned cold when they saw that. Their fighting spirit that had just been ignited was extinguished rapidly. The difference was too great. However, how could the dozens of Dragon Clan members possibly withstand such an attack? Suddenly, the two dragons guarding the formation core shuddered and spat out a mouthful of blood. It was clear that they could not withstand the impact of the formation and were severely injured. Crack, crack, crack. A cracking sound came from the formation core guarded by the two dragons and was about to shatter. A crack appeared on the Astral Protection Formation as well. It's over. When they saw that, the eyes of the dragons were filled with despair. Even the eyes of the Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King dimmed and there was only a single thought in their minds: Torch Dragon Planet is finished. Long Ran looked at Su Zimo with guilt in his eyes and sighed. "Zimo, it's all because of me that you were implicated." Pausing for a moment, Long Ran sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. "We can only hope that your true body of Wu Dao will take revenge for us in the future." "It's fine, I'll take you guys away." Su Zimo sent a voice transmission with a calm expression. "Oh?" Long Ran seemed to have thought of something and hope reignited in his eyes as he asked hurriedly, "Your true body of Wu Dao is here?" Su Zimo shook his head gently. On second thought, Long Ran smiled bitterly. "That's true. Araki Takashi is far away in the great wilderness. Even if he moves now, it'll take him at least a day to arrive." Apart from Daiyu, no one else knew what Wu Dao's true body was capable of and Su Zimo did not explain either. He only called the monkey Long Ran and Long Li who was beside him, who was somewhat helpless and worried, and headed out of Torch Dragon Planet. "Where are we going?" The Long Li was confused. "Don't worry about that. Let's go." Monkey called out. He could not be bothered to think about such complicated things. In any case, there was nothing wrong with following Su Zimo. Monkey and the other two followed beside Su Zimo and headed out of Torch Dragon Planet. Many dragons noticed the movements of the four of them. The Spirit Dragon King and Radiant Dragon King looked over instinctively as well. One of the dragons looked at Su Zimo who had just passed by not far away and could not help but ask, "What are you doing?" "Leaving," Su Zimo replied simply. "Huh." The Dragon King was stunned. When the other Dragon Kings heard that reply, they were dumbfounded as well and felt that it was extremely absurd. If not for the fact that they were at such a critical juncture, they would have even laughed out loud. Is that human king scared out of his wits? Is he leaving now? Where does he want to go with that lineup outside? Even mosquitoes on Torch Dragon Planet won't be able to fly out, let alone a person. Fufu, he's really persistent. Earlier on in the hall he wanted to leave. Even now he's still thinking about it. The Dragon King remembered clearly that this human king was extremely arrogant in the hall and confronted dozens of Dragon Kings. He even declared that no one here could stop him. "You can leave this time round. We won't stop you." The Dragon King sneered. Chapter 3062. Could they be from the Tomb Realm? A Dragon King frowned. Could the Flame Dragon King be right and Long Li and the others have truly betrayed the dragons? There were still Dragon Kings who were prejudiced against Su Zimo's group. No, the Spirit Dragon King shook his head gently. The corpse god mentioned something earlier on. A human king killed more than 10 Tomb Realm kings and Beacon City was only saved for the time being. How can he be on the side of the Tomb Realm? The brilliant Dragon King added, look at the way the kings outside are looking at that green-robed cultivator. They can't wait to tear him apart. It's clear that they don't know each other. The Dragon King did not say anything else. The Spirit Dragon King frowned and said in a deep voice, however, I wonder what he's trying to do? If he stays on Illumination Dragon Planet with the protection of the formation, he can at least live for a little longer. If he leaves, the dragons were not the only ones. Even the many kings outside the Torch Dragon Planet stopped what they were doing and looked at the green figure that soared into the sky with unfriendly expressions. It's him. A true spirit that escaped from Beacon City could not help but shout, that's the person who attacked and killed many of our kings in Beacon City. Human king? The corpse god murmured softly with a playful look in his eyes. Su Zimo brought Monkey and the other 3 to the front of the formation. With a few tricks, he brought the 4 of them through a crack that appeared on the formation and into the cosmos outside. Earlier on Illumination Dragon Planet, Long Ran and the other 2 could not sense it clearly because of the formation. Now that they were in the cosmos outside Illumination Dragon Planet and surrounded by more than 5,000 Grotto Heaven Kings, the 3 of them finally felt a terrifying might. It was like a raging sea that surged over in a suffocating manner. This was a realm war. Apart from the Tomb Realm, there were more than 100 Grotto Heaven Kings of various sizes around them. Only a realm war could gather the power of so many realms together to form such a terrifying formation. Even Monkey's bloodline could not withstand it at that moment. If not for Su Zimo blocking in front of them, the 3 of them would have collapsed on the spot. On Torch Dragon Planet, the dragons raised their heads and watched this scene. The more than 5,000 Grotto Heavenly Kings outside stared coldly at Su Zimo without saying a word. They wanted to see what this human king wanted to do. Everyone. Su Zimo cupped his fists and said indifferently with a calm expression, please make way. The starry sky suddenly became absolutely silent. Whether it was the dragons on Candle Dragon Planet or the hundreds of millions of soldiers in the starry sky, regardless of their cultivation level, they all looked at Su Zimo in astonishment. For a moment, the crowd couldn't wrap their heads around it. No one would be surprised if this human king knelt down and begged for mercy or decided to fight to the death. However, none of them had expected that this human king would only say, please make way for me. After running out of the cave, this human king. Judging from his tone, he seemed to be quite polite. Not to mention the more than 5,000 cave heavenly kings in the starry sky, the dragons on Torch Dragon Planet, and even the 3 behind Su Zimo almost bit their tongues when they heard just now's words. The corpse god king gradually came back to his senses and sneered. After surveying his surroundings, he looked at Su Zimo and asked, are you serious? Very serious. Su Zimo said. You were the one who killed the Tomb Realm King in Beacon City, right? Yes. So, you still want to leave alive? Yes. Pausing for a moment, Su Zimo continued, besides, you guys can't stop me if I want to leave. Upon hearing that, not only did the corpse god king laugh out loud, even the surrounding crowd burst into laughter. On Torch Dragon Planet, a dragon king sneered, this person is spouting nonsense outside. He's afraid that he won't die quickly enough. Long Li's eyes reddened as he took a step forward and whispered, Brother Su, I know you're doing this for my own good, but the situation now is different from Beacon City. There are only more than 10 kings in Beacon City. There are more than 5,000 here. At the mention of that number, Long Li's heart trembled. It doesn't make much of a difference to me. Su Zimo replied casually. Long Li's mind was in a mess and he did not understand what Su Zimo meant. He merely murmured to himself, there's no way out for us. We won't be able to see Mother again in this lifetime. Su Zimo said, since there's no way out, we'll just have to kill our way out. Ah! The laughter in the crowd grew louder and more ear-piercing. Almost everyone thought that Su Zimo was joking or even losing his mind. Monkey, who knew him the best, seemed to have realized something as he grinned with nervousness and excitement in his eyes. The 3 of you head back first. Su Zimo waved his sleeves and sent Monkey and the other 2 back to Torch Dragon Planet before turning to face the surrounding Grotto Heavenly Kings. What's the matter? A Tomb Realm King sneered, are we going to fight? Kill our way out? The other kings also chuckled and looked relaxed. They could not be blamed for that. It was just an army of more than 5,000 Grotto Heavenly Kings. They did not need to take an ordinary human king seriously. What threat could this seemingly thin and weak human king pose to them? Zombie god, wait for me to capture him alive and give him to you. Refine him into a battle corpse while he's still alive. A peerless king of the Tomb Realm said as he charged towards Su Zimo in a flash. The zombie god king did not take it seriously. He waved his hand and curled his lips. Look at his white and tender flesh. I'd despise such a corpse even if you gave it to me for free. Is that so? Looking at the peerless king who was charging over, Su Zimo chuckled. Although he did not manifest his bloodline, after Qinglian's true body cultivated to the peak of the 12th grade, her bones were clear and her blood had been replaced. Her skin was so fair that it seemed like it would break at the slightest touch. Such a body was naturally not worthy of the zombie god king's attention. In the knowledge of Tomb Realm cultivators, only Protoss, dragons, stoners and so on were the best battle corpse materials. The reason why the peerless king of the Tomb Realm was so arrogant that he did not even summon his battle corpse was because his cultivation realm was higher than Su Zimo's. In his opinion, even if his body and bloodline were ordinary, he could still capture this human king alive. This human king had tender skin. It would be a pity if his battle corpse scratched his skin. In the blink of an eye, the Tomb Realm king approached with corpse chi swirling around him. He reached out to grab Su Zimo's head. Su Zimo did not move at all. There was not even the slightest ripple in his eyes, as if someone had frozen him in place. Just as the palm of the peerless king of the Tomb Realm was about to make contact with his head, Su Zimo suddenly struck. Too fast. Everyone felt as if Su Zimo had raised his arm. With a bang, the Tomb Realm king was sent flying. The head on his neck spun a few times before his neck bone shattered and his nascent spirit extinguished. He was already dead by the time he fell to the ground. Chapter 3063. A peerless king had died just like that. Many kings didn't even have time to react. Their expressions were relaxed as they chatted casually with the people around them. In the blink of an eye, the peerless king who had charged forward had already died. Wasn't this too fast? When many people saw this scene, they even felt that it was unreal. After entering the Grotto Heaven realm and becoming a king, everyone had all sorts of life-saving methods. Even in a battle between kings, unless there was a great disparity in numbers like now or absolute suppression in strength, it was very difficult to die. It was one thing for a peerless king to die so quickly. What really surprised everyone was that this human king dared to kill in front of more than 5,000 kings. The dragons on Candle Dragon Planet were also shocked by this scene. Some of the dragon kings who were initially critical and even doubtful of Su Zimo fell silent at that moment. They could only defend Candle Dragon Planet to the death. They didn't even dare to charge out, let alone kill a peerless king in front of everyone. A dragon king snorted and said, "This person has some tricks up his sleeve, but his actions will only anger the other party. It's too unwise." "What's so unwise about that?" Spirit Dragon King frowned and said, "The other party doesn't plan to let him go at all. They're already charging up to kill him. If we don't go back, should we kneel and beg for mercy?" Spirit Dragon King glanced at that Dragon King and shook his head. He couldn't believe that a Dragon King would say such words. "It's useless to go back. It won't affect anything." That Dragon King said, "He can kill one king, but can he kill 10, 100, or 1,000? If he goes out now, he's just a mantis trying to stop a chariot." In the starry sky, the Corpse King glanced at the Tomb Realm King who had just died. His expression didn't change at all, as if the Tomb Realm King had nothing to do with him. Only one Grotto Heaven King had died. To the Corpse King who had an army of more than 5,000 kings, it was nothing. In such a situation, let alone a normal king, even 10 or 100 kings wouldn't be able to do anything. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. The Corpse King sneered and waved his hand. "Kill him." Dozens of kings charged out from the crowd. Some were normal kings while others were peerless kings. Peak kings were not interested in an ordinary king like Su Zimo. There were still some kings who were prepared to make a move, but when they saw so many people rushing out at once, they didn't step forward. Su Zimo looked at the dozens of kings who were charging over with a calm expression and said indifferently, "A mantis trying to stop a chariot. Not bad." However, it's hard to say who's the mantis and who's the car. At this moment, of course, no one cared about this sentence. When everyone heard this, they only snorted and laughed disdainfully. Dozens of Grotto Heaven kings rushed up together. An ordinary king holding up a Grotto Heaven was quite a sight. However, the other Grotto Heaven Kings all looked at him with a trace of disdain. This person's face turned red and he put away his Grotto Heaven. There were dozens of Grotto Heaven Kings and dozens of Supreme Kings. Even if each of them were to stomp the human king to death, why would they need to use their Grotto Heavens? In the face of such an attack, Su Zimo did not dodge or retreat. Instead, he charged toward the dozens of kings barehanded. This scene looked like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. It was as if in the next moment Su Zimo would be crushed to pieces by the rolling wheels of the chariot. Just as the two sides were about to collide, a dazzling green sword light burst out from Su Zimo's glabella. Buzz! A sword hum sounded. Su Zimo held the Qingping sword in his hand and turned into a sword light as he charged into the crowd. Sword shadows appeared one after another, and the sword light was blazing, cleansing the surroundings and instantly engulfing dozens of kings. In fact, when these Grotto Heaven Kings saw the green sword light, they realized that something was wrong and wanted to hold up a Grotto Heaven. However, that sword light was too dazzling, and the kings felt pain in their eyes. A sword hum suddenly sounded and like a sharp sword, it pierced their ears. For a moment the kings lost all their five senses. It was this slight delay that allowed the green sword light to sweep over like a tide and directly engulf the kings. The next moment, blinding blood gushed out and splattered into the cosmos with a torrential blood chi. In the blood mist, only a figure was left standing. His black hair danced and he wielded a sword. His green robes were still the same and were not stained with blood. Both inside and outside Illumination Dragon Planet, the dragons and billions of troops were dumbfounded when they saw that. It was too fast. The sword hum sounded and before it dissipated, the battle was already over. The dozens of kings that charged forward were all dead without a single one of them surviving. In fact, not even their complete corpses were left. All that was left was a blood mist and broken limbs. Of course, everyone knew that the death of dozens of Grotto Heaven Kings was not because they were weak, but because they had underestimated their enemy. Even so, Su Zimo's attack still shocked countless cultivators. The Corpse God King narrowed his eyes slightly but remained calm. His gaze landed on the Qingping sword as he nodded. Not a bad sword. Before the Corpse God King could give the order, hundreds of Grotto Heaven Kings stood out. Among them there were even 3 peak stage kings. This time, many Grotto Heaven Kings stopped underestimating him and charged forward with their Grotto Heavens. "Get out of my way!" A peak stage king shouted. These 3 peak stage kings had sharp eyes. They had taken a fancy to the Qingping sword in Su Zimo's hand and wanted to take it for themselves. The other hundreds of Grotto Heaven Kings could only disperse helplessly. The 3 peak stage kings charged forward. Although they did not release their perfected Grotto Heavens, they did not dare to be careless and took out their respective Grotto Heaven spiritual treasures. The sharpness of the green longsword even made them feel a chill. Su Zimo suddenly smiled at the 3 peak stage kings who were charging over and said, "Actually, my physical body and bloodline are not bad either." Boom. As soon as he said that, the sound of a tsunami came from Su Zimo's body. A huge amount of blood chi gushed out like the sea, attracting countless gazes. Even the Corpse God King's expression changed as he looked over. "What powerful blood chi!" The Corpse God King murmured, "Did I misjudge?" Such powerful blood chi was something that even beings like the Protoss and dragons might not be able to cultivate. Could it be that this human's physical body and bloodline had some kind of background? There were many Grotto Heaven Kings present, but not many of them could see through it just based on blood chi. In the next moment, Su Zimo directly pushed his bloodline to the limit. A jade-green lotus suddenly rose from behind him, almost bursting through heaven and earth. It swayed and shone, causing the starry sky to tremble. The stars dimmed, and the sun and moon lost their color. Chapter 3064. Su Zimo possessed the creation Qinglian bloodline and was aware of the cruelty of the upper realm. After ascending, he had been trying his best to hide it as though he was treading on thin ice and did not dare to expose himself. Even so, he nearly lost his life and circled the gates of hell before being reborn with the help of the Emperor's tomb. Even in the Sword World, the 8 peak masters of the Sword World and the 3 peak masters of the Sword World knew about his Qinglian bloodline. However, they did not dare to announce it as they were worried that it would bring him death. However, after the battle in the Great Wilderness, Qinglian's true body had entered the Grotto Heaven and there was no need for him to hide his bloodline anymore. Even if the world knew that Su Zimo possessed the grade 12 creation Qinglian bloodline, so what? He was fearless no matter how many grotto heavenly kings of the same cultivation realm came. If there were truly imperial lords who were blind, Wu Dao's true body could descend at any time. At that time he wanted to see who would dare to plot against the creation Qinglian. The billions of troops looked at the jade-green Qinglian that swayed in the galaxy with shocked expressions. Is that the legendary creation Qinglian? It's actually a peak grade 12? The creation Qinglian has already fused with that person. His flesh and blood is the creation Qinglian. A wave of exclamations sounded from the crowd. Many kings' eyes lit up. When the dragons on Illumination Dragon Planet saw the jade-green Qinglian that connected heaven and earth, their eyes widened and their hearts skipped a beat. Brother Su hid it so well. Long Li was speechless when he saw that. She seemed to have thought of something and could not help but exclaim. In other words, Brother Su did not use his full strength even when he was surrounded by more than 20 supreme true spirits in the fiend battlefield of the celestial tribute world back then. He was already the #1 true spirit in history without using his full strength. Long Li was secretly shocked. In the cosmos, the 3 peak-level kings had just taken out their grotto heaven spiritual treasures and were about to show off their skills when they ran into Qinglian, a level 12 creation realm cultivator. The 12th grade creation Qinglian merely swayed gently, and the 3 peak stage kings trembled violently, bursting out into a mist of blood. The surface of their bodies cracked and they were almost shattered on the spot. The 3 of them were overwhelmed with shock. Just as they were about to prop up a grotto heaven, this Qinglian of good fortune was swaying in the air, and when it landed on their bodies, it instantly tore their bodies apart. Under countless gazes, the creation Qinglian gently swayed, and the bodies of the 3 peak stage kings were shattered into dust. Their bodies and souls were destroyed and not even their bones remained. Not to mention the fact that these 3 peak sovereign personages only had ordinary physical bodies and bloodlines, they did not even condense their bloodline mysterious phenomena. Even if it was a peak dragon king or a peak divine king from a powerful race, they would still be suppressed in close combat by Qinglian, a grade 12 creation realm expert. What a powerful bloodline. On Torch Dragon Planet, Spirit Dragon King and the others exclaimed. Su Zimo killed 3 peak stage kings instantly with a single bloodline phenomenon. Another Dragon King said, those 3 peak stage kings underestimated their opponent too much. They only needed to release perfected grotto heavens to suppress that bloodline phenomenon. The Radiant Dragon King said, no matter what, fellow Taoist Su has already killed dozens of kings. Even if he dies now, it's still a gain. Kill. The death of the 3 peak stage kings triggered a massive battle. Many grotto heaven kings hollered and attacked one after another. Many Tomb Realm kings released their refined battle corpses. There were hundreds and thousands of them, forming a massive corpse tide. They roared and charged towards Su Zimo. However, the moment those battle corpses entered the range of the grade 12 creation Qinglian's green light, they would find it difficult to move and endure immense pressure. Furthermore, the green light could cause immense damage to the battle corpses. Corpse chi surrounded the battle corpses and their bodies were lifeless. On the other hand, the creation Qinglian was filled with boundless life force. Life and death. When the 2 extreme powers collided, an intense conflict was bound to occur. No matter how strong those battle corpses were, they could not withstand the might of the creation Qinglian. At this rate, before the battle corpses could even touch the corner of that human king's robes, they would turn into pus and be completely crippled by the light of the Qinglian. When many Tomb Realm kings saw that, they hurriedly controlled their battle corpses to retreat. Just like that, the bodies of these battle corpses had already suffered great damage, and their battle prowess was greatly reduced. Although the battle corpses were strong, they were suppressed by the grade 12 creation Qinglian and could not unleash any strength. Good. When he saw that, the corpse god king was overjoyed and praised repeatedly with an excited expression. Grade 12 creation Qinglian. This is an opportunity bestowed upon me by the heavens. It was no wonder that the corpse god king was so excited. The stronger the grade 12 creation Qinglian was, the stronger the combat strength of the battle corpses would be after they were refined into battle corpses. If they could successfully refine her, even the god corpses and dragon corpses would have to give way. Scram. The corpse god king stepped into the battlefield and shouted, this Qinglian is mine. Most of the grotto heaven kings ignored him and did not stop. When a battle broke out, it was difficult to stop it with just a few words. The corpse god king was only a king, not an imperial emperor. He did not have the prestige and strength to suppress others. The corpse god king's expression darkened. With so many people and thousands of grotto heavens, Even the grade 12 creation Qinglian would not be able to withstand it and would be shattered in an instant. Even the slightest damage to the grade 12 Qinglian would cause him great heartache. It would affect the battle corpse's strength in the future. The corpse god king's eyes shone with murderous intent. He controlled his battle corpses and tore a burning moon realm king in half. The burning moon realm was only a low-level realm. This king had come with the tomb realm army, but he had been severely injured by the corpse god king. The burning moon realm king's primordial spirit left his body with a furious expression, but he did not dare to say anything to the corpse god king. He turned around and fled. However, before his primordial spirit could escape far, a scarlet blood tongue tore through the air and instantly swept up his primordial spirit, pulling it back. The corpse god king's battle corpses had stretched out their tongues and swallowed the burning moon realm king's primordial spirit. This battle corpse charged left and right through the crowd, and it killed a few heavenly abode kings and caused an expanse of chaos. Many kings had just rushed forward, but before they could use their grotto heavens to suppress the battle corpses, they saw this scene and felt their hearts tremble. The corpse god king was ruthless and even killed people on his side. The kings were wary and stopped moving forward, opening a path for him. The corpse god king was secretly delighted when he saw this. In the blink of an eye he charged toward Su Zimo. He knew that the battle corpses would be restricted by the creation Qinglian, so he directly released his grotto heavens. Boom! The grotto heavens clashed with the grade 12 Qinglian's avatar, resulting in a loud explosion. The corpse god king's grotto heavens were unable to suppress Su Zimo's bloodline avatar. The two sides faced each other in the air, neither giving way to the other. The corpse god king's expression did not change, as if he had been prepared for this scene. A cold light flashed through his eyes. The best way to obtain an intact corpse was to use a primordial spirit secret technique to destroy the opponent's primordial spirit. However, this human king was only at the initial stage of the grotto heavens realm. His primordial spirit was his greatest weakness. The corpse god king had already thought of a countermeasure before he attacked. Chapter 3065. The corpse god king's perfected grotto heaven entangled Su Zimo's bloodline phenomenon and channeled his essence spirit at the same time. The spirit consciousness of a pinnacle king gathered rapidly in his glabella and burst forth in the form of an essence spirit secret skill. A lifeless gray mist shrouded over and stole all life in its path. Before it even arrived, it transformed into a finger-sized battle corpse that lunged toward Su Zimo's consciousness. That was an essence spirit secret skill of the tomb realm and was a killing move of a top-tier cultivation technique of the tomb realm. It was similar to the reverse scale secret skill of dragons. The offensive power of the essence spirit battle corpse was not considered top-tier. However, the moment an opponent's essence spirit secret skill fought against it, corpse chi would surge into one's consciousness and cause immense trouble for one's essence spirit. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged against the essence spirit secret skill of the corpse god king. He did not conjure an essence spirit secret skill to fight against it and merely slashed at the incoming essence spirit battle corpse with the Qingping sword. The corpse god king was delighted when he saw that. The only way to defend against an essence spirit secret skill was to use one's spirit consciousness. Unless it was an essence spirit weapon, there was no way one could defend against an essence spirit secret skill. However, the sword in the hands of the human king was extremely sharp and could slice through flesh. It was clearly an ordinary grotto heaven numinous treasure. Exclamation point. Right then, the Qingping sword made contact with the essence spirit battle corpse and sliced it into two without any resistance. Not only did the corpse chi fail to surge into Su Zimo's consciousness, it was dispersed by the immense life force of the Qingping sword. The corpse god king's heart skipped a beat. How was that possible? How could a weapon that could slice through flesh defend against a spirit consciousness attack? Before he could figure it out, a sword beam burst forth from the Qingping sword with a shuddering aura and pierced towards his glabella instantly. Was that an essence spirit secret skill? The corpse god king's pupils constricted and his expression changed in shock. At that moment, he even smelled the aura of death and his hair stood on end uncontrollably as his scalp prickled. During the growth of the creation Qinglian, many lotus seeds formed the Qinglian sword that could deal extreme damage to essence spirits. When the Qinglian of creation reached the 12th grade and stepped into the pinnacle, the Qingping sword was born. The Qingping sword was formed from the green lotus sword, which was condensed from 108 lotus seeds as a sword embryo. In other words, not only was the Qingping sword a top-notch divine weapon, but it was also an essence soul-type killing sword. Su Zimo could use the Qingping sword to attack the essence spirit at any time. The corpse god king didn't expect this green longsword to be so powerful. It was as difficult as ascending to heaven for Qinglian to grow to the peak of 12th grade. In this life, the immortal Slayer Emperor had only raised it to the 11th grade. Almost no one had ever seen the Qingping sword, let alone know how terrifying it was. In the blink of an eye, the sword light entered the corpse god king's sea of consciousness. It was as silent as a stone ox entering the sea. The corpse god king's body only swayed slightly, and his face became even paler. However, the vitality in his body had not dissipated, and he was still alive. The corpse god king's essence spirit was still wearing a stone-skinned corpse robe. It was refined from the essence spirit of a stone race king and was a defensive essence soul-type numinous treasure. It was this stone-skinned corpse robe that blocked the killing technique. However, the Qingping sword's sharpness still shattered the stone-skinned corpse robe and dealt a significant blow to the corpse god king's essence spirit. The corpse god king's perfected grotto heaven shook slightly and became extremely unstable, showing a trace of weakness. Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly as his blood qi surged. The creation Qinglian swayed and multicolored light spread out. He crushed the corpse god king's perfected grotto heaven in one fell swoop. Su Zimo's eyes were cold as he charged forward with sword in hand. Without the protection of the grotto heaven, the battle corpse was suppressed by the creation Qinglian's bloodline phenomenon and couldn't get close at all. Under Su Zimo's sword, the corpse god king was like a fish on the chopping block. Come and help me. The corpse god king realized the danger he was in, and he couldn't help but roar. Many of the kings of the realms had just been killed by him and they all scattered. Seeing the corpse god king in trouble, these kings couldn't help but hesitate. There were even some kings who were gloating over their misfortune. If the corpse god king died, so be it. It didn't affect the situation too much. After all, they had thousands of grotto heaven kings and billions of soldiers. If it weren't for the corpse god king, they would have already killed that human king. Would they have allowed him to survive until now? The kings of the other realms all had different thoughts. The corpse god king of the tomb realm definitely wouldn't let the corpse god king die here. You're courting death. Kill him. The three peak corpse kings closest to the corpse god king came forward and didn't hold back. They formed grotto heavens and attacked Su Zimo together. Seeing this, the corpse god king relaxed. He looked at Su Zimo and sneered. You're still a bit lacking if you want to kill me. Facing the three peak kings, Su Zimo didn't stop at all. He only stared coldly at the corpse god king. The corpse god king felt a little uneasy under Su Zimo's stare. Did this human king have something else up his sleeves? No matter how strong he was only at the initial stage of the grotto heaven realm. His bloodline phenomenon was indeed powerful, but it definitely couldn't block the three peak kings' grotto heavens. If I want to kill you, they can't stop me. At this moment, Su Zimo's voice sounded. It was calm and powerful. Whoever stops me will die. Boom. With a loud sound, the space around Su Zimo collapsed, and a small grotto heaven appeared. Although it was only a small grotto heaven, it was extremely magical. Inside, there were bright lights, lightning, thunder, and rain. Countless runes were forming all sorts of strange phenomena in the grotto heaven. Ha! The corpse god king was slightly startled, but he quickly laughed and said, "It's just a small grotto heaven." Boom, 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 boom. Before he could finish his words, he was interrupted by 4 explosions. Apart from the initial small grotto heavens, the voids around Su Zimo collapsed one after another and a massive power of grotto heavens gushed out. This time it wasn't just the corpse god king and the 3 peak corpse kings. The surrounding army of billions, more than 5,000 grotto heavenly kings, and the hundreds of thousands of dragons on Torch Dragon Planet all widened their eyes in shock. Across thousands of miles of the Milky Way, all the living beings who saw this scene were in great shock. At this moment, the world seemed to have quieted down. Many experts were in disbelief and disbelief. The scene in front of them had completely overturned their understanding of cultivation. Five grotto heavens? The spirit dragon king's voice trembled slightly. Such a shocking scene had never appeared even in ancient legends, let alone witnessing it with their own eyes. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.